Clinkety clink. Hey there, friends. Wow, wasn't that fun? All right. Yes, I will be joined by my two co-hosts, Grey Waste Tim and Girl Nettles, in just a moment. But I thought I would start off just me and you, and so we could just talk about what's happening here. So, guys, this is going to be a show where a lot of people die. Dragons are going to die. People are going to die. And it is frequently going to leave us feeling like we're feeling right now, which is kind of a mix of exhilarated, a little bit freaked out, a little bit traumatized, a little bit in awe, a little bit. It's a lot. Your heart's pounding a little bit. I'm feeling it still. I already saw it. Now. So imagine you were me at the premiere a month ago in L.A. And right after you saw this episode, they shove you into a L.A. atrium party where the actors are all there and a bunch of swanky industry people and stuff. I was like, I was so freaked out by the episode. In any case, guys, I do want to start off by talking about Emma. The way that we're going to deal with death on this show is kind of what I want to talk about first, really. So, like I said, a lot of people are going to die. A lot of dragons are going to die. We're watching a show about the downfall of sort of a decadent family. There's a lot of shows that are like that. That's what kind of show this is. To say there's no happy ending is not exactly right. Like, some people will get happy endings, that the war does end. That's happy. A new king gets on the throne at the end or something, But I mean, like, there's a lot of, and I'm at Grey Waste, Tim is calling in. I'm just going to have him in my waiting room for a second. There we go. And I guess what I'm saying is we need to honor their deaths. That's what we're going to do. Like, if we're watching it and intaking it, then let's just process it and honor it, talk about how they went out, talk about what their life meant, talk about what the death meant, in a somewhat lighthearted way. Because, again, this is all pretend. Nobody really died just now. But at the same time, we're immersed in the world. It definitely is supposed to feel real. We're supposed to empathize with the characters. So I've got many thoughts on all of this, and I would definitely welcome your thoughts. And obviously, it's a little bit of a sensitive thing, what we just watched. But first thing I want to say about Queen Emma. So, first of all, this is an example of the character building. Yeah, it's not real. Just remind yourself, nobody actually died. It's okay. What a performance by the actress. What a job of character building by the show in a short amount of time. To build that up, both her relationship with Rhaenyra. I remember I was telling you that before the thing. I was like, her relationship with Rhaenyra is built up a lot more. Well, it's not even really mentioned in Fire and Blood. And this is just the kind of thing that, when I say fill in the gaps, like, this is what we're talking about. The gap was her entire relationship with her mother and the story of what it's like to be a mother, quote, with a royal womb. I took some notes. We were chatting, obviously, here during the thing, but I took some notes, and that was one of the lines she said to her daughter, "We have royal wombs," which kind of just says it all. The crown possesses the womb, and then you saw that play out in that scene. So there's a maester conspiracy angle, obviously, to talk about. There's a dragon baby reference in there. But the first thing I want to say is that, obviously, what's the point of taking us to this emotional place and showing us this scene? We'll talk about whether or not the maesters were correct in their assessment, and we can analyze Viserys' choice and all that stuff. But, what's the point of the show showing us this scene? In my opinion, it's kind of like this. If they're going to say that the birthing bed is a battlefield, then you've got to show that it's actually a battlefield. And that's why they juxtapose it, obviously, with the jousting and people's getting their brains beaten out. But, we're accustomed to seeing gore on the battlefield. And it's this is a different kind of gore and violence that we are told about happens in the story all the times. There's lots of women that die in childbirth, but we never really get that description of what that's like. So obviously this was an extra twisted situation. Like I said, there's a question of whether or not the maesters were honestly assessing the situation when they presented their thing to Viserys, or the predicament, their summation of the predicament. But I think that Emma What can you say about her? She obviously was a strong woman. She was trying to do, you've really felt for her when she was like, I'm sorry if I've failed you. But at the same time, she's like, I don't know if I could try again. I can't watch another child die. So you felt her exhaustion, and and just it's meant to, the point of, I heard Miguel Sapochnik in an interview talk about, the amount of mothers that die in childbirth, and he overstated whatever the statistic is dramatically. But the point is that anytime a woman gets pregnant, there's a small chance. Like even now, there's a small chance. It's much, much smaller than it used to be. But it's always dangerous. There's complications. There's all kinds of things. And even when it goes right, it's very traumatic on your body. There's all kinds of sacrifices. And then both parents make endless sacrifices of their spirit and of their time and their life to raise the child. So the most violent aspect of childbirth gone wrong, in a storytelling point of view, for Ice and Fire, is essentially meant to be to put a spotlight on the entire sacrifice of raising children. The whole thing is a sacrifice, and that is dramatized many ways in A Song of Ice and Fire. This is sort of the most extreme situation, but I just want to give everyone take a breath. That was a lot. Emma was awesome. The performance was amazing. The maesters, I told you those maesters were hella creepy. So with that said, let me go ahead and bring in my guests, and we will get to all the fun stuff and have lots of jokes and stuff, but I didn't feel like we could start doing that until we at least mention that and give everyone a chance to process that together, which we were doing in the chat, obviously as well. So let me go ahead and bring in Mr. Grey Waist Tim. Is that Grey Waist Tim, or is that a dragon? I'm not sure who that is. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
And let me just keep talking for a minute so I can check your audio.
It's probably through the mask.
It's super low. Yeah, I need you to definitely be louder.
Yeah. I'm just the fun's gonna have to come.
But we appreciate the effect. See, the thing is, the joke here is that Daemon's Grey Waist Tim's cat is named Daemon, and so he has to cosplay Caraxes as an accessory to Daemon. So there you go. And let me just pop over to Twitter to make sure Girl Nettles has the address. She should. So I'm sure she'll be along shortly. And so since we're talking about Emma, what was your thoughts about Emma, Tim, and just what we saw there?
First, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're still way quiet. Make sure you have the right microphone selected, or that you see if you have an input that you can turn up. See if you can find that. Definitely, the performance was like I said, that was one episode. Like that was 60 minutes, and we just met somebody. And okay, everyone's saying they hear him all right. Go ahead and talk, Tim. Let me see. Let me keep talking, and we'll see how it is. It shows that it's not very loud on my end, but I guess I'm wrong. I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry for making you feel like you had a technical issue when you actually didn't. I humbly beg your forgiveness, friend Tim. Can you lower your camera a little bit? It feels like you're riding kind of low in the saddle there. There you go. That's a little better. All right. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead and tell us what you thought of the Emma performance, the scene. Take any angle on it you want. We definitely need to get into the maester angle, because Otto might have just had Viserys' wife and son murdered, possibly.
Possibly. Yeah, I was about to tear up when they started binding her and holding her down. I immediately started tearing up. It makes me be so thankful for the advances we have today in medical science and birthing, because I was a breech birth. Like, my mom had to have a C-section in order to have me, and luckily she was able to be sedated, put to sleep, and wake up and hold me when I was born. So
I too was a C-section baby, and yes, I too am thankful for modern medicine. That's a good point. Yeah.
But
okay.
Yeah,
carry on.
It's just like I love the dynamic that they gave with Emma and her daughter, because, like you said, it's not something we got to see in Fire and Blood, since I mean, it's by design. Fire and Blood reads like a history, so we're not going to get like dialogue between characters except for a few lines that people are quoted as saying. So to really flesh that out, to build up a relationship between mother and daughter, and to see how close they were before she's so sadly taken away from her, and everything that comes with that, it was heartbreaking. But at the same time, it's like you get to cherish those moments, even though they're not going to last. Like, even with I feel like even if you haven't read the book, you know that like there's a tragedy coming. like it's pretty much there from the beginning. As soon as the episode begins, like I don't think things are going to go very well for this family.
And that's kind of what I was saying to people about the Fire and Blood story, is because it is so condensed history, it doesn't really impact you unless you slow down and sort of not just read it through and erase, but like stop and think about the events that are being described in only a few sentences. You have to stop and imagine, what would that have been like for the characters? It's never explicitly said Rhaenyra constantly chafed against her gender. But it's like, think about it. Any woman that's trying to be the first queen of Westeros is obviously in a gender struggle by default, because she's being asked to take on the duties of a king, to fill the role of Aegon the Conqueror, but without the full rights and privileges of half of society. So of course it's a gender struggle. Like, they don't have to tell you that. When you see all these women trying to have children and like, they survived for 3 days and then they died, it was like, those were 3 days of hell that everyone just went through that just got glossed over. So now, if I could zero in on something, the thing that was the most disturbing about the scene is that they did not ask Emma. There was no conversation with her. And then the Septas just kind of moved in and they held her down. And Viserys is like, it's going to be all right, fully knowing that she's going to die. And so they made this choice, I guess, not to give her the choice and just to go forward with it. That made it extra disturbing. I think the point of doing that was to demonstrate the lack of agency that women ultimately have. In a gnarly way. But let me go ahead and bring in Nettles, who is going to be amazingly beautiful in her cosplay, and I'm bringing her in on a super gnarly question. So we'll just have to handle that cognitive dissonance. Girl Nettles, welcome to the show.
Woohoo!
Cosplaying
Oh
Lane of
God.
Valyrian, I assume, yes?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I think so. When
Okay.
you're close to the mic, it sounds great. Maybe point it at you a little bit more. Looks like
Okay,
it's
perfect.
pointing to your dragon more than you. There you go.
Honestly, I kind of had this headcanon that Nettles, because in the books she has brown hair, but then when she rides Sheepstealer for the first time, Sheepstealer kind of burns her, and then she burns her hair like Daenerys, and then she grows the silver Targaryen hair.
I like that.
Lena.
Well, we're going to need John's hair to turn color too. I've predicted that it's going to come back white because we've seen that the being brought back from the dead can do stuff like that. Stoneheart comes back with white hair. So I'm looking for
Right?
John to turn into more of a...
Theon. Even Theon has white hair.
Also Theon, yes. So guys, welcome. Got Grey Waste, Tim, and Girl Nettles. This is the crew. We will occasionally bring a fourth person in to join us on rotating fashion, but this is our crew, and I'm really thrilled that thank you guys for joining me and all that. The official contract, I forgot to email it to you. I'll get it to you. It's just gonna, it's so.
Management. What can you do?
Yeah, my manager is a big slacker. He's somewhere but lives in the back here. So in any case, we're talking about the Emma scene, and let's go ahead and finish that so we can get to some of the awesome and fun stuff and liven things up here. But like I said, the creepy part was not giving her a choice. What did you think about that?
That was insane. Well, first of all, kudos to Patty Considine, because like I'm an actor. I've been acting since I was 9. And the acting on his face without words was amazing. Like you could see him, like when he says, I love you to her for the last time. You could see exactly in his face that I love you, but I got to kill you because I need an heir. So I don't know if that's really love, but whatever. That aside, but I was watching the stream, and exactly what you said. The fact that she had no agency, and you just see how they dragged her legs. They dragged her legs, and she's like, and that's when
It
she's
was
like, "Oh
honestly
wait,
so violent when they did that. Like, it was so jarring when they just yanked her down. It's like, you are now a piece of meat instead of a person. Like, it was
right,
messed up.
do
Yeah.
your duty, and give me an heir." I was watching it with my man, and I turned around and I told him, "If it ever comes down to me or a kid, please choose me.
Yes.
I can give you another kid."
Yeah, I don't
But
know the
please
kid
choose
yet.
me.
Exactly.
Um, but I mean,
Patty's acting was amazing throughout, and we'll get into, like, evaluating the act. But yes, Patty obviously had some some
his
great
eyes
stuff there.
told the story of exactly what was going on, and like it's like he never even made a choice. As soon as they said like we can only save one life, he immediately said the son. But
Well, they didn't say they could save either life. It was like, they're both going to die, or we can
or one, yeah,
save the son. Yeah. Now, there's another question of, is that accurate given the medical technology that they had?
That's what I was saying. Could they do C-sections in medieval times?
I don't know. I don't. I wish I had. I should have thought to research that before the stream, to be honest. But I don't. It seems like the way it's presented to me as a layperson is that, like, the maesters were a little quick to be like, well, this is our dilemma. Like, I think we're supposed to doubt whether or not they were accurate at the very least. What do you think, Tim, about the medical side of it?
It's hard to tell because of how little they knew back then. Like, it's hard to tell if Mellis is being genuine when he says all efforts have been made to try and turn the baby around and get it in proper placement to do a good natural birth. And that's the thing. But given like the whole Maester conspiracy, maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe it was a lie. Maybe there was more that they could have done. It's like, it's really, really ambiguous exactly how much more he really could have done. And I think that's something.
So Carl Karsnark, if we're real quick, Karsnark is an IRL med bro, he says.
Nice.
And he says that they were correct for what technology they had. And obviously I'll look to follow up on that, but maybe that was the case when it's turned around. I don't know. But I think the point was that I think that's why they maybe didn't give her a choice, so that we don't focus on whether or not they were right or not, but just on the fact that, like, the women don't get the choice ultimately. It's a royal womb. It's the possession of the crown. And when the crown makes an executive decision about it, that's that. I think that is the bottom line takeaway, right?
Emma even told Rhaenyra, like, this is our job. Like imagine clocking into a 9 to 5 and your job is to produce the heir. So that was her job. But she said, please, Viserys, like, that was, I'm still reeling from that. Like, even though she knew that was her job, she still said, please, like, give me a chance. And then the maester, then the maester takes the baby. The baby's crying, rocks it, looks at it, and he goes, uh-oh.
Yeah, to go through all of that and then to hear that baby start coughing, and it's like, oh, no.
Well, a nice touch in the directing was that Viserys didn't even bother to check the gender of the kid, which was the whole point of it. Like, he was holding Emma's hand, and they had to tell him, oh, you have a son. And he's like, a son? It's like, yeah, that was the whole point. So you could tell it's like he made the decision, but he was obviously very torn up about it. To the point of, and that's how they sort of showed you that, like, at least, I won't say at least. I think you can judge Viserys pretty harshly, particularly for not giving Emma a choice, right? I mean, that's the main thing. Like, he didn't explain to her the situation, because then maybe she can have a choice to sacrifice herself in order to save her child, but that's her choice at least, right?
What do you think her choice would have been?
Well, if there's not a way to save her, I mean, that's hard to say.
I think she would have chosen herself, because number one, that last moment when she was like, Viserys, please, because she realizes what happened, and she's like, Viserys, please. Number one, and then the conversation she has with him when she's taking a bath, she was like, this is the last one. Yeah. She's already saying, like, I've given up on the kid thing.
Yeah.
She's already saying like, I
That's a good
gave you
point.
freaking Rhaenyra. Like, let's travel the world. Let's do something else. Let's go on a cruise. Let's retire. So I feel like she would have chosen herself, but even
Yeah.
that seems kind of different from what I expect of a woman of those times. Because like, let's compare like a character like Catelyn. I feel like Catelyn would have been like, "Oh, I'll die so that my child can live," type of thing.
Right.
But
I agree that Emma had a different energy. Yeah, exactly. She wasn't all
Mhm.
about just like anything for my children, or for making more children even. Yeah. So
Tim, what do you think?
Roderick Spence with a super chat and a good point. There's a stark difference between how and why they portrayed Queen Emma's Arryn's death compared to Talisa in A Game of Thrones. Arryn, Emma's death is much more tastefully portraying the reality and terror of birth, past and present, right? Like the pregnancy stabbing, quote unquote, was just like one more horror that they threw on top of the Red Wedding to make it even more jarring when it was already horrific. I thought that was tasteless as well. This was entirely different as far as because anytime you're choosing to show violence or sex or anything extreme, it should have a point. Like when you throw that stuff in just for shock value, most people consider that to be tasteless. So there's always has to be a point. I mean, really, everything has to have a point. Everything that's on the screen has a point. So it's really just a matter of asking why they're doing stuff. But yeah, great point, Roderick. Thanks for the super chat. There's a couple more up here. Let me see if I can get back to them. Gunnar Dan, bombshell ending, but Jon or Dany weren't on the throne. That's true. That probably will continue to be true. And also, guys, if I miss any of your super chats, they are being collected in a doc, which I will circle back to at a certain point in the stream after we've gotten through some things. So ultimately, I will get back to your questions. And yes, as many people in the section of in the chat have pointed out, Julius Caesar was born with a C-section, hence the name Caesarean section. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Welcome to the Squishers, Uniquely Stellar. And by the way, the Squishers that's the YouTube channel membership. So you just hit the join button right next to the subscribe. It's $5 a month. And you get access to all these cool emojis down here that you can see on the screen that I'm entering in my little chat there. And so, yes, where was I? Super chats.
Well, I wanted to ask Tim what
Go
he
ahead.
thought. What
We have
choice
to
do you
remember to
think?
ask Tim what he thought. Me and you will just talk the whole time. Tim's very polite, so thank you, Nettles.
Yeah,
What did you
I try and wait for everyone.
You can
to
be waiting
come.
all day, my brother. Go ahead, Nettles. Ask Tim.
What do you think Emma's... I've been saying Emma, and I heard Viserys say Emma. So what do you think Emma would have chosen if she was consulted at all about her vagina?
I do think that she would have that she would have chosen herself, because like you said, like she already laid out, like we have Rhaenyra, we lost one in the cradle, we've had 2 stillbirths, we've had 2 lost pregnancies, like we're 1 for 6. Like the odds have not been our favor. And the way she was saying, like in that tub scene, like this has to be the last one. I cannot go through this again. Now, if Melos had the opportunity to like really lay it out for her, like, look, it's either the baby or nothing. Like, I can't save both of you, but I can save the baby. Maybe then she would have been like, okay, save the kid, so at least one of us can live. But I think if it was literally it's the baby or you, I do think she would have chosen herself.
I hope Melos becomes Qyburn.
What do you mean you hope Bella?
Archetype.
Is this like okay, I was about to say, is this a strange, like Qyburn is 150 years old, Bruce Bolton, immortal vampire?
No. I mean like archetype, like kind of like,
Okay.
okay, I'm the science guy. Like I'm going to do the experiments that people are afraid to do type of thing. That's what I was thinking when he was talking, because I was like, I couldn't, yes, C-sections were around, we've established that, but at the time I was like, wait a minute, is this the first C-section we're seeing in this era? So I was like, okay, this is Qyburn. He's not afraid to do the science experiments and to try new things. Wow. What a show. They fucking did it. I can't believe it. Okay, I already have a conspiracy theory just based on this birth. You guys want to hear it?
Okay, so hold on real quick, just for accuracy. I'm being told that Caesarean section actually derives from the Latin word cadere, which means to cut.
Cadaver.
And it
Sounds
is
like
associated with Caesar famously, but that is Anyway, I sort that out on your own. I don't know who's right, but
We have such an educated chat. I learned things from them.
oh, it's disputed by historic. That's always the final answer, actually. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for giving us the other, the other side of that debate. I do appreciate that, in all honesty. So
who's the nerd? Carl? Is that? Was that Carl
we've got a lot. We've got more than one. We've got more than Carl and Anu. We've got a few.
Actually, it was.
So can we talk about the conspiracy angle, Tim? Let me stick with you. Do you think that Otto? So do you think the maesters were doing foul play, and if so, do you think Otto was involved? There was a lot of tight cuts between all that happening and Otto sending a raven to Old Town. And I just, watching it on the second time, it felt more conspiratorial to me. But what did you think?
For me right now, when it comes to Melos, I just want to just focus on Melos just as our maester, because he's our one maester example at the moment. He's someone that I'm on the fence about right now. He's someone I feel I need more episodes to get more characterization, because I don't know if he's a Maester Luwin genuinely trying to do his best and do good, or if he's a Qyburn, or if he's a conspiratorial gray rat. I think I need more characterization from him to form more of an opinion on him.
So far, I think the Maester conspiracy is very much alive. And if you notice, like, we didn't see much of the Great Council, but they made sure to show us the Maesters carrying the vote decision, and then the proclamation is sealed with the Maesters logo. So, like, you're very much aware that, like, they are counting the vote, and you know what I mean? Like, they told us that much.
Wow. In the books, didn't they say the vote was like 19-1?
So the way they reel out on the books is super shady. They say that talk was that it was 20-1, but the results were never released.
Yeah.
So it's like deliberately
Rhaenys
fishy.
wouldn't vote for herself. Corlys wouldn't vote for Rhaenys. Like, that doesn't even make sense.
They told you that they made it out like they had more support. Like when you looked at the allies, they had Baratheons and Starks and some major houses that would have brought smaller houses with them. So it's kind of not believable. And hat tip to Preston Jacobs overanalyzing House of the Dragon series. He really, I was watching one of his videos and he was pointing at a lot of stuff. I was like, yeah, that's true. They did have a lot of support. I mean, I was already on the idea that they didn't publish the results and that's fishy. But he made the point that, like, it definitely wasn't 20-1 based on just who they told us their allies were. So it definitely fishy. And I would say on the show, like I said, they're presenting the Maesters in a very fishy way. They got those, like, Frey-looking hats on. That's deliberately creepy headgear, is it not?
It is.
Thank you. All right. Because I thought it was. So
it is.
Go ahead, Tim.
It's that quote I think a lot of us have heard, like, those who cast the votes decide nothing, those who count the votes decide everything.
I've never heard that quote, and I don't like that. I used to work elections. I used to work for the government, and I used to work elections. So I don't like that quote.
Stalin who said that?
Well, I have to zip my tongue or I'm going to segue into real world politics. So we skipped over some basic stuff. What did you guys think of the episode? Are you both of the same opinion as me? It's a great episode. The show's going to be awesome. Like, where are we on this?
I got notes. I mean, so I was watching with my man, and he is not a book reader. He doesn't know anything at all about House of the Dragon.
Okay.
And I had to, like, I don't know if I had to. Maybe I was just a know-it-all and explaining. So I was telling him a lot. So I also feel like if you don't know what we know, that maybe it would have been like a different experience, kind of, because there was a lot of like fill in the blanks type of thing. But I loved it. I cannot wait. I love that the pace they're going through. And did we get the theme music? Like what the opening song is?
Well, no. No, I mean not really. No. They sort of they
started
played
right away.
They played my favorite piece of music over the opening sequence, and when they flashed the Targaryen logo, and when Rhaenyra was flying Cyrax, the dragon Cyrax, as it's pronounced, and that was the and That's my favorite piece that I've heard from.
Daenerys' theme.
Which
right?
one? It's
Isn't
a
that
modified
Daenerys' theme?
version of the Targaryen theme. It's very similar to the. Yes, it's very much the new version of that. But it's got this new movement in it that's really amazing. And I was hoping that was going to be the title song because I want to make a cover of it. But we
Yes.
didn't get an official thing. So now we have to wonder, are they just holding it to next week because they did the cold open? Or are they really giving us a show with no opening sequence? I don't know. I don't have any inside info on that. So
I have a bet with my friend Finch, if you're watching, because I was like, I would love it if they had the same dun 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 dun, because I'm like, that song is so good, you might as well keep it again. And she was like, no way, like they would never pay Ramin, they would never pay him to make the same song. And when I heard that sequence, and I was like, it might be the same opening theme song. I'm not mad.
They played basically the straight Game of Thrones theme on the ending credits for sure. I mean,
Right.
it had some vocals in it, but it was just a slight remix. So I don't know. We'll just have to see next week. But I think I am going to make my version of the one that I was talking about. I liked that too much. Real quick, your boyfriend or I'm sorry, I don't know what the official term. Your partner, he liked it, or was he like having trouble with it, or what did he think of it overall?
I think I hyped it up too much. Like, I've been getting ready for 4 hours.
Fair.
So he was just kind of like, he was like, well, in Game of Thrones, he's like, it's not no brand being pushed out the window. And I'm like, but we got a lot of deaths and stuff. He was like, but I was watching him, like I had my eye on him. He was like riveted.
Okay.
He was riveted,
Yeah.
type of thing. But no, I am.
Because ultimately,
I
like,
don't want to get too gross, but I was thoroughly enjoying this show the entire time.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Game of Thrones, ending aside, like, it was 8 seasons. It covered a lot of ground. You can't compare one episode to all the places that, think about the first episode of Game of Thrones in the first season. Like, this show is off to a great start, in my opinion. So I gave this first episode, I called it a 10 out of 10 when I came out of the theater. What would you give it out of 10?
10 out of 10.
Okay, and Tim,
Yeah.
give me your number and baseline rating for it here.
10 out of 10.
Yeah. So okay. So and how do you guys feel in the chat? Give me your numbers out of 10. Go ahead and just flood the chat with ratings, and we'll take a quick polling of the fandom here. I
also
think it was
judge the wigs. The wigs are so good. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 for the wigs.
8 out of 10 is 6, 10, 7, 10, 10, 10. Looking pretty positive. Yep. So it's okay to leave room. Oh, look at that. There we go. Look how fast it's going. Everybody's piping in. And by the way, we are in subscriber mode only. If you just wandered in and you can't comment, all you need to do is hit that little red button that says subscribe. It's a way to keep out like bots and things like that. It's really easy. All you have to do is just literally click the button and then you can chat. So, yeah. Okay, so let's go. I've got a little bit of. I have segments designed so we don't just wander around talking about all the different stuff. That was my idea. We'll evolve this as we go week to week. But so this we've done therapy. I think we're therapied now, and the fan results are looking pretty good here. I'm seeing mostly very high scores, only the occasional low score. I'll be curious to see what some of the people that hated it think, but for the most part, it looks like everyone's feeling good about it. 1 million out of 10, Joe O'Shaughnessy says. So Flying D-Watch means, of course, this is our dragon segment. So we saw 2 dragons. We saw Syrax and Caraxes, right?
Yes. And Balerion Skull.
And Balerion Skull. Thank you. That counts. Absolutely. That's part of Balerion. Oh, by the way, we're going to have to take some votes on how we pronounce things. I say Balerion like he's a transformer. And most people say Balerian, and I'm getting lambasted for that. Does that bug people? Like, tell me in the chat. Do I need to say Balerian? Like
my whole thing is George has told us that we can pronounce it however we want.
He has, and so that's why I'm always like sporting about this. There is no real right answer. I mean,
listen, I'm petty. I'll pronounce things wrong on purpose just to piss people off. Because if George told me I can pronounce Dothrakai, isn't that how he says Dothraki? He says Dothrakai.
Like Cobra Kai.
Yeah, so let us. Yeah, that's how he pronounces it. So let us pronounce it however we want.
I mean, I flip-flop between both pronunciations of Valyrian. Sometimes I say Valyrian, sometimes I say Valyrian. It depends.
Yeah, he's I just call him Baller Ryan. He's Baller Ryan, the Black Dread. He's a baller. He's got one dread. He's like a super OG Rasta. It's all gone. It's the Black Dread is his hair. It's one dread. That's Baller Ryan. Anyways, so Flying D Watch, what do we think of the dragons? We've seen a lot of this obviously in the previews, but how about that opening sequence with Rhaenyra and Syrax? I felt like it was telling you that this is a fantasy show, like announcing right off the bat, like the dragon usage will be casual. People will just arrive into a scene on a dragon and then they'll put it away. And we don't have to go to war every time there's a dragon. Like I felt like on Game of Thrones, they misered the dragon CGI, and every time they brought it out, it was like action, and then they disappeared. And this show is not like that. I feel like the dragons are just going to be as casual as the nudity.
Well, yeah, didn't you see the people in King's Landing when the dragon flew over? They were just like, just walking by. Like, we've seen this a million times. Versus Game of Thrones, where people every time they were like,
Yeah, they're just
So
an
I like
absolute
that.
law because dragons have been extinct for so long.
right.
That's
I
true.
like the
That
normal thing.
the reaction of the crowd is really important, just to show you how it's been normalized and how chill it is. Yeah. So Red Keep looked awesome. It's more red now. The whole sequence is great. I love the little dragon cooing and the little sounds that it was making as it was flying, and the flaps and the seagulls. Like very immersive, very rich. So yeah, I love that. The dragon handlers. I mean, it was a little bit campy with the old and the young, and it's like, oh no, give you a chance to use the command, and he's all like, oh, easy, Syrax, easy, but I like the fact that they have 10-foot poles, like that's the safe way to touch a dragon is with a 10-foot pole. Do you think there's like a metaphor there?
It reminds me of Corona, 6 feet. Like, keep your distance.
But-
like the flame could only go 10 feet. I doubt it.
That's what we needed. Yes, that's what we needed in the supermarket 2 years ago. Is we needed those 10-foot poles.
But I have a question. It looked like
Easy,
there were two
Syrax.
riders.
I'm just trying to get groceries.
Back up. Were there two riders, or was it just Rhaenyra in that opening sequence?
Oh, just Rhaenyra, but there was two
Okay.
dragon handlers. I meant.
No, I know. But for
Okay.
me, I had a question because it seemed like maybe it was just the saddle was so big and Rhaenyra. I'm like, are there two people? So I was like, is it Rhaenyra and Daemon already
Well, she
riding
was.
together? I had questions.
Well, she was trying to get Allison to. She was pretty soon. Just about big enough for you to ride, and Allison's like, which of course foreshadowing. Like Allison doesn't like dragons. Like, yeah, she's gonna like him a lot less by the time this is all done. Yeah, so that was a cool character building scene. What do we think of the oh no, we're on Flying D Watch still. So then the other one was Caraxes at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is Daemon storming out of the city or whatever. Yeah, we'll get into that whole Daemon scene. I told you guys there wasn't going to be a ton of dragon action in the first episode. They were more setting up the characters. So in my opinion, Dragon of the Week has to go with Syrax. For the opening sequence. I think that was pretty majestic. What do you guys think?
For me, it's going to be Caraxes because I have never in my life seen a dragon with wings on its hind legs.
Caraxes is awesome. I'm definitely a Caraxes stan, so we got to vote for Caraxes and one for Syrax. What do you think, Tim? Break the tie.
Caraxes was always my favorite dragon, even from the books, and I'm pretty sure, given his characterization, he's going to remain my favorite as the show goes on.
Well, I'm embarrassed. I need to change my vote to make it unanimous because I'm supposed to be the Caraxes fan, but I was just trying to be like not a complete Caraxes homer and give some credit to Syrax, but very well. It's Caraxes. It's always going to be Caraxes. That's fine. Whatever. I'm good with that. But good stuff.
When we saw Caraxes, I was just going to say, like, when we saw Caraxes, especially when we saw Daemon petting him, and I was just like watching, I'm like, oh, big, I'm just like, oh, big puppy. Like I have
That's not a puppy, though. That's not a puppy.
Well, it's
Yeah,
an
yeah,
intentional
but, like,
juxtaposition to show both Daemon and Rhaenyra with this relationship with their dragons. Like in the middle, we have Viserys going, the dragons destroyed Valyria, and it's like this, like we've got to keep them because the long night, but it's really awful, and we should never have messed with them. And then we've got at the beginning of the show, Rhaenyra very comfortable with her dragon, petting the dragon, and then at the end we have Daemon doing the same thing. So the sort of bookending King Viserys in the middle with these two more true dragons in Rhaenyra and Daemon, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm still like, wow. I'm like still high from the show though. I'm so happy. 2 years waiting.
I'm a
It
little.
was everything I wanted it to be.
I'm
But
almost
yeah,
happy I'm able to be a little more chill because I've seen it once. But yeah, I was.
I know, right?
I recorded that video right after I got out of the thing, and I was definitely like, So.
Okay,
All right.
So yeah, Caraxes, Dragon of the Week. Let's go, Bloodworm. Let's go.
That's fine. I'm okay. Like I said, if we give it to him every week, that's okay. But Vagar, she's gonna come around here pretty soon. So you don't just watch out.
Now hold on. Now we're gonna see some sheep stealer. You know, it's gonna be, you know, there's a Sunfire. There's gonna be some other ones.
Well, how about Nettles? I haven't talked. We talked on Twitter, but how about the fact that Sapochnik, in the middle of his like professing his love for the dragons, stops and says that his favorite 3 are the wild dragons, which of course includes sheep's. Like that means we're gonna get a good sheep stealer, I think.
That means they're doing it on purpose. Like we won't see them until they want us to. They're gonna look crazy. They're gonna look crazy. We're like I'm just assuming that they're gonna be dragons that we've never seen before. I cannot wait. Cannibal?
Yeah, I'm super interested to see how they depict Cannibal.
Yeah, I'm looking for in general all of the characters and dragons that kind of just have one moment of glory in the story. I expect them to find little ways to sort of expand out their presence so that we meet them earlier. Like somebody was saying, Blood and Cheese is obviously going to happen in season 2, but Blood is a member of the City Watch. So might we meet him in season 1 to set that up? That would be smart. Stuff like that. So Cannibal, Sheep Stealer, and Grey Ghost. Yeah, we could hear about Cannibal eating fishermen again, or you know what I mean? Oh, the sheep, they keep disappearing. The goddamn brown dragon keeps stealing all sheep. Lord, it's important. Lord Corlys, God help us. You know, something like that.
Sheep borrower, you know, just borrowing those sheep, like
sheep leaser.
I feel like I know who Blood is. There was one scene with the heir for a day thing when they're like in that brothel and everyone's like, okay, be quiet. There's like one guy who's giving it to a girl from behind. That's Blood. You know who I'm talking about? That one guy who's like in the middle of.
I don't know if I do. I want to go back and look now to see, like, this is a good fan theory that you've come up with.
He's actually center stage of the shot.
Yeah.
Is he the one that's like the prince wants to speak or whatever? Was that
Yeah,
him?
yeah, and then we just
Okay.
see like his bare
Yeah.
like the focal point becomes his bare ass until
You see his butt.
Daemon
Yeah, thank
gets
you,
up and
Tim.
starts
Yeah.
talking.
Tim, no.
All right. So
But,
you heard it here first. This is the reason why you come to this post-game show, and we know you have choices. We appreciate you rocking with us here to get the hard-hitting analysis. Nettles is always coming with the theories. So we've got the Nettles hair burning turning pale theory. What else? You had another one too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I haven't said it yet about Aemma's birth gift. I thought of it with that scene of her giving birth, but we can wait until we get to that.
Yeah, don't blow our minds too quick here. So that was Flying D Watch. Tim, did you have any comments on the dragons in general, either these 2 that we saw or all the dragons that we've seen? In just the way I've been talking about it a lot on the past streams this whole week about how they're approaching the dragons and the dragon bond. So give me some thoughts on that stuff, man.
Yeah, so like going back to what we had said about how the dragons are going to be more normalized. It's just like a daily part of life, especially, you know, in King's Landing and then Dragonstone when we see it. Because you think back to the original show, we don't see the dragons until the very last scene of season 1, and it's just the baby dragons. But here we're opening our very first scene is Cyrax flying across the sky, and it's like, yeah, it's like a completely different perspective. It's like seeing a dragon at this point in time, because there's so many dragons. It's like seeing a dragon flying in the sky in King's Landing is as normal as me walking outside and seeing some squirrels in my backyard. It's like it's a total 180 from the way we were supposed to perceive dragons in Game of Thrones. It's like, yeah, they live here. They're there.
Another difference is the the way that the dragons are like safer to be around. Like these dragons are trained. They are used to being around people. The handlers aren't freaking out like it's a life or death situation. They're using caution, but they're like, obviously this is a routine. They expect the dragon has I'm sure he's going to get a nice fat treat, nice ox, you know, or something like when he goes into his little paddock or whatever. So it's just totally different. Dany doesn't know anything about how to control her dragons, and she has to lock them up in a basement because she just doesn't know what to friggin' do with them. And Drogon's wild and loose and stealing sheep and children possibly. So totally different approach to the dragons, isn't it?
I love Cyrax being the one to light the funeral pyre for Emma. And was that the first time that we've actually seen a Targaryen funeral rite? Or funeral... Is it funeral rite or funeral custom?
Yeah, unless you count Dany's burning Drogo. She kind of invented that herself. It was...
I thought it was a Dothraki thing.
The whole...
No?
Yeah, I guess it was, yeah. Yeah, I guess it was.
Now I need to look up every regent's funeral.
I don't think... No, we wouldn't have seen any Targaryen funerals on Game of Thrones. No. I mean, there wouldn't have been any. There were no... Because, like, Maester Aemon got a night... Like, he... How did he die on the show? I remember how he died.
He was burned.
Okay.
He was burned on the Night's Watch pyre thing that they kind of had. The same one that they had... Yeah,
that's weird how the Night's Watch have the same funeral rituals as the Valyrians, isn't it? You know, and the Valyrians also have dragon glass, and the Night's Watch have dragon glass. The Valyrians are supposed to fight the others. The Night's Watch fight the others. I don't know. This all seems like kind of copacetic to me, but...
Well, I don't know if that's the Night's Watch or them honoring Aemon's family tradition.
Well, but they burned Bannon, too. I think you burn people in the north because of the whiting problem, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. So he doesn't return.
Right. Just interesting that the Valyrians have death rites that are, you know, anti-white technology, I guess. But just, you know, could be coincidence. But, of course, then again, they did have that whole prophecy thing with the knife and the Song of Ice and Fire. Let's talk about that.
I'm not ready. No, I am. But that was crazy. Wait, I have the knife.
Well, oh, you do. Look at you. And I want to let Tim go on this one. He's our resident lore master, our half maester. Oh, there it is.
But mine doesn't have runes because mine came out when Game of Thrones came out.
Well, we can carve those bad boys in there. I'm sure we can do that. We can etch them in. So Tim, your thoughts. I've given my thoughts on this in the Long Night Prophecy video because But what do you think of this general concept of the Aegon's prophecy and the Targaryens carrying this knowledge that they've got to, you know, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, so I like the idea, but I feel like it has to be, in order to make it work, it has to be murky. And we've seen though that like that's normally the way prophecy works is it's very generalized, and then a lot of people make their interpretations of it, and then they be like, oh, well, this is obviously about me because of like their own illusions of grandeur. That's how I always felt like happened with Rhaegar, for example, until he's like, oh, this is obviously about me. Oh, no, wait, this is obviously about my son. The details are, but the problem with the prophecy is that the details are so generalized that it could literally be about almost anyone.
So let me ask you, when Viserys had the dream about his son with a crown, now it would seem like a dual meaning. Like one, the crown represents like the knives that cut Emma, because crowns are connected to killing in A Song of Ice and Fire explicitly. To crown her is to kill her was said about Myrcella. The throne is a rolling ball of knives. That's the whole point of being born with it. And that's how Emma takes it, like, oh, a kid with a crown, that sounds painful. So that's obviously foreshadowing. But the kid that Viserys is placing on the Iron Throne would ultimately, it's going to be Aegon II. So he's misinterpreting his own dream in a couple ways, isn't he?
I was thinking, was he seeing Jon or Daenerys?
Could be. And he thought it was his son, and it wasn't. It was just someone of his line. But I mean, his son does sit on the throne, so it could be Aegon II.
For a time. But he was also said all the dragons roared as one in his dream.
And that sounds like the war. It sounds like the dragon's fighting to me.
Okay, so maybe it is Aegon too. It's
That's how
Aegon
I
too,
looked
then.
at it.
So like that's what I was getting at. Like maybe it's Aegon too, maybe it's Jon. Like it's so up in the air. It's all up for interpretation, and it's people coming to assumptions of like, okay, well it's this, and then them kind of like just forcing it to make it be that. But that's the thing, and I think that's like the biggest problem that Targaryens have always had is that it's not the fact that they're having these prophetic dreams, it's the fact that they're trying to force prophecy to fit their narrative. That's the problem. And that's always going to be the problem.
Then why didn't he name Aegon then?
What's that?
His heir. Why didn't he name Aegon as his heir?
We
then?
will have to see how, because this dream is a new detail. So we'll have to see. That's a good
I
question,
don't know. He
Nettles.
said something else in the dream. It was the dragons roaring as one was the last thing. But he said something else that I remember when he was saying it, I was thinking that like, wait, that doesn't happen during the era of Dance of Dragons. So that's why I immediately started thinking it's way in the future, either Jon or Daenerys. What else did he say?
Well, there was
Because
like,
even the dragons roaring as one doesn't happen ever in Dance of the Dragons, does it?
well, it just depends on what that means. Like, because they all were active at that time. They all fought battles at that time, and they were roaring at each other. Or it could be, the end of Game of Thrones when, for the first time in hundreds of years, the night came alive to this, the music of dragons. That's the last line of a Game of Thrones. So maybe that's what it's talking about. But Tim's
Put a pin in it. We'll come back.
so Tim is making the point though that like, and I didn't put out my prophecy video that I was going to release this morning because I just needed a little bit of sleep. I had done so much video editing for like a week, but I am going to put it out next week. And one of the points I'm making is that prophetic knowledge is a burden before anything else. Like, it's important, so you got to do something about it, but it's confusing as hell, and it's all very dire. So it puts you in this bad position. And then as soon as you try to think you might figure out what you're supposed to do, and then you do it, everyone else thinks you're crazy, and you can't really tell them the real reason why you're doing stuff. And that's the situation that Rhaegar was in. So somebody sent in a super chat a minute ago with a great question that I think is going to be answered on the show. And I'm going to go through a few. Dragon Flying 007. I wonder if Viserys also told Daemon about Aegon's dream and the Song of Ice and Fire, because he doesn't tell Rhaenyra until Rhaenyra's the heir. Daemon has been the heir, but kind of by default. So you don't think so. Tim, what do you think? I'm guessing no.
Don't
Also,
this episode, but when we think back to the trailers and the teasers we've been given, Daemon is going to drop that line about dreams didn't make us kings, dragons did. So maybe Viserys talked about it. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a point where someone is going to mention dreams to Daemon, because why else would Daemon respond with that line?
I'm going to guess that is Rhaenyra telling him about this many years down the road, and that Viserys never told him. And probably he doesn't find out until he marries Rhaenyra. And then he's like, what? Either that, or it's Viserys telling him about a different dream, just any dream. And Daemon's just like, dreams, whatever, So
yeah, like when it comes to prophecy, I take the Marwyn the Mage path on it. And that's the thing, like, and that's why I feel like Daemon is more pragmatic in that approach when he says, like, well, dreams are dreams. We need, dragons made us kings. Like, Daemon's living in reality, and that's the problem with prophecy. It's like, I get it. Like with Rhaegar's issue, what with prophecy was everyone wants to be the hero of their own story. And when you have like illusions. I always call it like illusions of grandeur, but it's never taking the time to look back and really look at what the prophecy is and be like, okay, what are all of the different pathways that this can go? And not only that, what are the bad ways that this can go? They never want to think about the bad ways that things can go, or like, hey, what if I'm wrong?
Exactly.
Yeah, so very good. So I think we've covered the prophecy angle. We'll obviously come back to that as we get more details of the prophecy. Let me catch up on super chats. I got a bunch. Like I said, they're going into a doc, so I'm just going to do a rapid fire here. And let me hit the cough button. All right, so Ollie Reed, even knowing what happens, I cried throughout. So great comment there. It highlights the fact that even though we know what happens, this is going to be a very dramatic show to watch that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. So case anyone was worried about that. I was trying to reassure people that it would be that way. But yes, very much so. Squish, let's see, the Mighty Monarch says, in the words of the Hound, fuck the king. Yeah, definitely some hard feelings for Viserys. That's valid. Matthew Buffington, so we don't get to hear Daenerys say Daemon say heir for a day, which is interesting because he does look a bit sad before the speech. It is interesting. The thing is that when Viserys asked him, did you say it? He doesn't deny it. So we have to assume he said it, but we don't hear him say it. What did you guys think of that?
Okay.
I think back to sorry, Tim.
All right. I was just gonna say, like, okay, going back to the stream we did 3 weeks ago, the House of the Daemon stream.
Yes.
I think the implication is
Good
that
plug.
he said it, and I am going to admit, because back in that stream, I had vehemently defended the idea that Daemon did not say it. Now, I'm gonna admit, I'm always gonna admit when I'm wrong. And so I think the implication is that he did say it. The thing is, though, is that since the camera cuts away and he has, it's going to be ambiguous because he's sort of kind of laughing and smirking, but then he also has the same sad, forlorn look. When he says it, we don't know if he says it disdainfully, if he says it snidely, or if he says it mournfully. But I think the implication is that somehow, some way, he did say it. What we're not getting is the context in which he said it.
So in that same stream, before I cut you off, Tim, I was going to reference it. David, you said that it's possible that Daemon might have said it, but in a sad, forlorn way. Like, all right, here's a toast to my poor nephew. He was an heir for a day.
Right.
Like something like that.
Right.
And that is what I'm leaning towards, that he did say it, but he said it in like a forlorn way.
Because his defense was we all grieve in our own way. Right. So that would make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And in that brothel scene, Daemon was writing letters. What was he doing? He wasn't participating. He was at a table. So it'd be one thing if they shot the scene with Daemon mid thrust and he's like heir, like something like that. Then it'd be like heir for a day. He's obviously making fun. But you could tell that even though he's in a brothel, which is a place that he feels comfortable, he's not partaking in anything celebratory. Even in the scene, he's sitting
like
at the
very
table. He's
detached.
writing.
I think you nailed it
Right?
with that take, Nettles. The chat agrees with what you're saying here. Yep, that's pretty on the money.
And then when Viserys said, "Did you say it?" he looks down because he's sad again. Like it's not like a smirk. Like, well, yeah, I said it. Like there's none of that.
Yeah, and
It's
then
like
the
he's
next
sad.
thing that he goes to is like his deepest pain that he hasn't been able to talk about, which is feeling rejected by Viserys. Like 10 years, you've never made me the heir. You've always tried to keep me at arm's length. And we know that's true. We literally see Otto telling him he should be away from the city. And it's like Viserys is going back and forth there. This would be small counseling, I guess, but I really want to get into this dynamic of Otto and Viserys and Daemon, because even though Daemon is edgy and extreme and stuff, I think Daemon comes out looking pretty good in this episode. Like, there was a great line. Viserys said, "The queen's been falling apart since my grandmother died." That's Allison. So it just tells you Allison was doing a lot to administer the city and to keep things running. And since she died, there has been a lack of an administrative touch on the city. Okay.
Right.
And so Daemon is right when he says this fallen to ruin, blah, 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 blah. Now we can assume that not everybody he rounded up was necessarily guilty, but probably most of them were. Daemon we're supposed to understand that he's an effective captain of the City Watch. Otto's trying to use it against him, like his men are loyal to him. It's like, yeah, that's called leadership.
Yeah.
And so probably Daemon knows who he's going after. Now, obviously, harsh justice, medieval justice, all that stuff. I'm obviously fine with gelding rapists, and killing murderers is no more than what we have now. So it's not really that crazy.
Not a stretch.
It's pretty standard medieval justice. So I thought Daemon. Well, the key element here is that Otto is driving a wedge between these two brothers, and you can really see that if Viserys had trusted Daemon and kept Daemon close, Daemon's behavior might have been a little different. The house would have been stronger. And when that line, when it's like, "Oh, I would have protected you," and he's like, "From who?" Daemon's answer was, "From yourself, because you're weak and the people are preying on you." But it's like, from who? And I'm thinking to myself, Otto and the maesters just murdered your wife and kid. Quite possibly. Like, that's the kind of people that Daemon would protect you from. Because if Daemon was his hand, he would have run Sir Otto out of King's Landing. I've been talking for a long time. You guys go ahead.
No, I mean,
I'm riveted by this situation, and I just really think that Otto driving the wedge in between these two, this is how the war is starting. This is like one of the very first causes of the war is Otto doing this.
Did you notice that Otto was the first one to name Rhaenyra as the heir? Because Viserys like, well, who am I going to name? Otto says Rhaenyra.
No, and he looked down like, is this when I say it? Okay, I'm ready to make my play. And then he launches his thing. It totally seems calculated to me.
And then another thing that I caught, I love that Viserys said it, is when Otto was saying like, oh, he has control of the City Watch, and Viserys said, but you gave him that role. He wasn't good enough to be Master of Coin. He wasn't good enough to be Master of Law. You kicked him out. And I just want to say one more thing about this episode. It's almost everything that we talked about in our last stream has come to pass in this episode. We were talking about how like, Daemon started off with these roles and Otto chased him out, and how he made the Bullet Cloaks.
This is the moment I've been waiting for, because this is when I was watching the episode, I was like formulating a lot of these thoughts, and I'm like, so permission to go off on Otto Hightower right now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then I'll get back to the super chats. I said I was going through, but yes, go ahead, Tim, and then I'll get back to the super chats, guys. Thank you.
So again, admitting to things that I was wrong about in the Daemon stream. Like I had said, maybe Daemon wasn't cut out for the roles. And it seems like, no, the implication I got from this is that Daemon actually was doing a pretty good job as Master of Law and Master Coin. The problem is always Otto. It didn't matter what position Daemon had, Otto was always going to have a problem with it. Like you said, he was Master of Coin. You said he's a spendthrift. You said he was Master of Law. You said he's a tyrant. It's like, that's the thing. It doesn't matter. No matter what position he's going to have, Otto's going to have a problem with it. I had this thought in my head, Ross, thinking back to the original show when Tyrion was talking about how he was put in charge of about the drainage systems in Casterly Rock. I was thinking like Otto Hightower is such a fuckhead that they could have had Daemon be in charge of all the drainage in King's Landing. Daemon would have fresh water flowing throughout those pipes, and Otto Hightower would be like the guy going, well, there was a fucking hair in my cup, so he sucks at it.
Exactly. No, Otto, like I looked at my man and I was like, so Otto is the Pycelle character. Like, don't take him seriously. Like, I hate him. He was like, why? And I'm like, you're going to see. He's nothing but a lick spittle. He's going to change his mind on every single thing. And no, I love how they presented Otto, because I feel like the actor is exactly how I imagined him in the books. I love it. I love a good villain.
Dave, you're muted.
I thought that was me. I was like,
thank you. No, I was muted. Yes. Sometimes I like to do a mime routine. No, it was one. I think it was Millie Alcock and Matt Smith, and they were asking like, who would you not want to fight, or who would you avoid, or something like that. And somebody said like Rhys Ifans, the actor that plays Otto, is like, he's creepy or something like that. Like, so you can see that the actor definitely has this slow drawl that's like, are you even alive, dude? Like, are you necromanced or something? Like, I mean, it's people compared him to Tywin because of some of the roles, but the energy is more Pycelle. I totally agree. Low energy Tywin, he's been thrown around. But yeah, wear your mother's dress.
Yeah, I was just about to say, can we talk about Otto the pimp? Otto the Littlefinger pimp?
Yes, we can. Permission to go off. I guess.
Oh, I was so surprised. Oh my
we need
God.
an Otto segment. I'm already seeing we need a weekly Otto segment. Go ahead, Nettles.
I have been saying for the longest that Allison is a hoe. That Allison sucked off King Jaehaerys. But it was always just, I had nothing to go off of. It was always just the text or whatever, loosely implying it. But I feel like Otto gave me the confidence to say this with confidence. Allison is a hoe because of her dad. Especially before that, Otto was talking about, oh, my wife just died. And he was like acting like, pretending like he stood up. And I'm like, what are you going to do to Daemon? Not a damn thing. Sit back down when Daemon said your wife's dead, right? You could tell that Otto does not even care about his wife, because when he told Allison to go and put on that dress, he was still writing. He was like, "Oh, by the way, put on your mother's dress."
Yeah, that's a good point. Just to show you how fake the outrage was at the council meeting. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. That's very skillful storytelling, right there. Nice
He's a
observation.
Pimp, and the worst kind of pimp because he pimps out his daughter. I don't have a problem with a pimp if you're gonna pimp out strangers.
As long as everything's
your
consent,
daughter?
sex work should be legalized. Yes, we're pro sex work here, as long as there are protections and all that stuff. But yeah, pimping out your child is definitely not. Nobody's in favor of that.
For the second time.
What's that?
For the second time, because the first time was Jaehaerys. The second time
Potentially
was
so. Potentially so. And I pointed that out in the Allison villain video, is that in the Fire and Blood canon, that's where we meet Allison. She's 14 and she's reading to the old king and bathing and dressing him until she's 16 and he dies. So for a year and a half or more, very suspicious. Why does
And
Otto...
Jaehaerys is calling her the name of women that he loved in his senile, like, dying days.
So
He's calling her all types of names.
So they were close, and yeah, so I don't know if they'll go back to explore that situation, but that is why I started off making the case that people should slow down on calling Allison to every dirty name in the book, especially when she's younger here in the story, because just consider the situation that she's put in. Again, Fire and Blood's not going to tell you what anybody's personality is really like, except for they tell you how awful Daemon is over and over. But, like, you don't know anything about who Allison was, and you can't assume she's a bad person. Look at the situation she's thrown in. My comment on Allison, and one of the things that stood out to me the first time I watched it, was the way that she was actually kind to King Viserys. She's been put in this awful situation by her dad, okay? And she brings the book, whatever. But then she has this moment where she stops and before she starts reading, and she's like, when my mom died, which she's generally heard about, all I wanted was for somebody to say, I'm sorry for what happened to you. And she stops. She says, I'm sorry for what happened to you. And you could tell that really resonated with Viserys. And to me, that was really impressive, because if you're Allison in that situation, how nervous are you? Like, you've got to be so fucking nervous. You've just been put between your dad and the king, the two most powerful men in the realm. They're both like 50 or something. And you're 18, 16, whatever she's supposed to be, and thrown in this situation, and Viserys has just suffered the loss of his family, and your dad has these weird implications. And what does she manage to do but see that Viserys is actually a broken man in front of her and offer some real genuine empathy? And maybe I'm giving her too much credit, but that's what I saw. And to me, I thought that was an interesting moment. And it's an interesting way to start building a connection between them, because when she comes to the door, it's so awkward. It's like, this is not a good match. She's not going to seduce him. She's so much younger. They don't look like a pair. But then it's like, you got to start somewhere, because we know they eventually get married. We don't know that they fall in love, but at least to get married, there needs to be some sort of rapport, connection that gets built. And so they've started building it with that moment. I thought it was touching, but whatever. I'm being accused of being pro Allison, but
David, if you were in the hood, you would get played.
If I was in the hood, what?
You would get played.
Oh, I'm a sucker. There's no question.
That was not convincing. Let's circle back to Sansa.
Well, that's why I have you here, Nettles.
Let's circle back to Sansa. And
Keep
I
it
am
real.
not even a Sansa
Go ahead.
fan.
Keep it real for me.
When Sansa's, when the Red Wedding happened, what did Sansa say? She was like, I just want everyone to leave me the fuck alone. Because when you have someone close to you die, that is what you want. Allison said, oh, I just want people to say I'm sorry for your loss. What? Like, not to like bring it down. My father died when I was 8. And I'm sorry for your loss was the worst thing. Like, because it's like, why are you sorry? Did you kill him? Like, what's going on? Like, even at 8, I was like, what are you guys sorry for? Because I know that it was just like the thing that you say. So she said the most obvious, empty, like just overplayed thing ever. And it seemed like she was coached. That seemed like a coach thing, like, oh, just say something polite. And even Viserys, he was just like, all right, I'm working on my model because,
I thought he looked affected by it. To me, I thought they were trying to show us that he appreciated it, but
he's a sucker too.
All right. Well, thank you, Nettles. I appreciate the different perspective. So yeah, some people. It's interesting that you could have And yes, I have Minty for protection. Minty is like a friggin', she's like a Valkyrie, dude. So she's got my back. Don't worry, guys. I was wandering around alone in the world, just like a lost little lamb. I completely was, and I do need people looking out after me. I'm a pure, genuine soul, man. I'm sure I bring my whole personality here. I mean, you're in my living room. You know, I don't hold it back. But so Tim, you didn't buy it either, huh?
When it comes to Allison, it's like, it's really awkward because this is a kid. This is a kid. Like at this stage in time, this is still a kid being thrown into a very awkward situation, being pressured by her father. And like, I think of like the scene at the joust when Kristen Cole asked for her, or no, not Kristen, when Daemon asked for her favor, and then when she goes to grab the flower, what are they called? Like, what are those flowers?
Is it a wreath?
The favor. Yeah, it's a wreath, but they call it the favor, yeah. And that was pretty funny. Daemon
just that look he gives her. Like, you better not fucking do it. But then she goes and gives Daemon her favor. And I love how much of a petulant shit Daemon is to Otto, because just fuck Otto Hightower. Like, I can't say that enough.
Well, on that we agree. I'm going to still go ahead and say that was genuine, and that was like genuinely empathetic by Allison. Until she proves me wrong, I think they're playing her as a good-hearted person who's trying to do her best. But I like that there's room to disagree about it. I think that means that it's well written.
I'll agree with you that she was nervous. We saw her her nails.
Mm-hmm.
She has anxiety. Yeah. But I will agree with you that she was nervous to go to Viserys. But I just feel like she's nervous because when you're coached to do something versus doing it of your own free will, you're going to be nervous. Am I saying it right?
And it's not something that she would do of her own free will. It was completely awkward for her. She had no rapport with Viserys to be the one like comforting him. So
yeah.
But at the same time, there also wasn't really anybody to comfort him. So there was a genuine void there that Otto maneuvered his daughter into. So yeah. So yeah, we definitely we're going to need an Otto Watch segment for sure. Like, who's watching the Watchtower? Watching the Watchtower. That'll be the segment.
Yes.
There it is. So
best comic book ever, but yeah.
Send a raven to Old Town. I think we're going to be hearing a lot of that. Like almost every scene, Otto's just going to send a raven to Old Town. I also like that we're periodically going to be seeing Otto whisper to Viserys, and we might not even know what Otto is saying, just to give us that idea that like there's constantly like this going on. So let's go.
What did you guys think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Nettles. Go ahead.
I was gonna say really quick. What did you guys think about the fact that while Emma was giving birth, there was a joust? Like, why wasn't Viserys by her side? Like, isn't that weird or no?
So
or is that just me?
I think that maybe they expected the labor to go longer, but when you've had a lot of kids, usually the labor doesn't last as long. So I don't know. I mean, I guess he announced that like she had just started her labors. So it's like maybe they expected it to go on longer. I don't know what the customs are. Now, in the Game of Thrones, there's like Robert was never with Cersei when she gave birth. He always went hunting and came back to find the kid already there. So I think it's like maybe supposed to be reflective of the person, perhaps.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah, I think like Viserys kind of just wants to hope for the best and take part in the spectacle and because that's Viserys' thing is he wants to be happy fun time king. He wants the good times to continue. He doesn't want to stop and dwell and ever really put into like he never wants to think of what the wrong thing that could happen. He's like the worst kind of optimist at times.
Well, I call him the Ostrich King. Yeah, for sure. So let me go back to the Nimble Doc. I've got so many super chats that I haven't caught. And then we'll get to our hero and villain of the week, which is a very exciting segment. Let's see here. AJ Cayenne says, do you think Rhaenyra being named later will make us sympathize with the Green Party and Allison more? No, I think the main change of Rhaenyra being named the heir later is to help us understand Rhaenyra's psychology. When we meet her, she's not expected to be the heir. And she even says, I hope Viserys gets a son. She's not ambitious at that point. She's more like an Arya character. I would rather be a knight. I'd rather ride my dragon. She doesn't have, and potentially, and I mentioned this before, that could be covering up for the pain of feeling rejected by her father, to be like, oh, well, I don't care anyway. I'd just rather ride a dragon. There could be some of that. But the point is, it's only here at this point of 14 or 16 or whatever she is that the thing has shifted. And now she's the heir. And her whole psychology has to change, because now she's like, oh, I'm going to be sitting on the throne eventually instead of just having a completely different life. So I think it's mostly about Rhaenyra. I don't know that it makes us more or less sympathetic with the Greens myself. Either of you have anything to add on that? Or
yeah, on that note, so I'm paraphrasing the line because I can't remember it word for word, but when they're talking about the idea of Daemon sitting the throne, and Otto Hightower and Viserys says, like, Daemon doesn't have the patience to be king, and then Otto Hightower says, like, doesn't matter if he has patience or not, nobody's going to give up the idea of absolute power. Now, he's saying that in reference to Daemon, but when reality, it seems like, no, this is actually talking about Rhaenyra when she starts to get the idea of being the queen, and that's when we're going to see this ideological shift where the I don't care attitude's going to go away, and then she's going to fully embrace the idea of being the queen.
I think it applies to everybody. That's all I would add. It's definitely Rhaenyra in that episode, but also to Otto himself and all of these people, essentially. But yeah.
This might be off topic, but what about the opening scene with Daemon on the throne? Is that treason?
Hold on.
Him sitting on the throne?
I'm just going to take care of this person. Nobody else can ban Super Chat except for me, Morgan Jameson. See you later, buddy. Thanks for humiliating yourself on my live stream. That was a weird choice to make, but it's the way you went. What were you saying, Nettles? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that treason for Daemon to sit on the throne?
It could be construed as such if Viserys wanted to. That is definitely, you could tell from the reaction of the Kingsguard that it was like at least very inappropriate at the least, you know. Yeah. So it's basically putting your head on the chopping block for the king and letting him decide whether he feels like executing you for that. That's very, yeah,
that was crazy. I had never seen that before.
A great introduction to him too. That was a great scene. So look, gosh, so much to talk about. Let me just mow through a couple of these. We're gonna do scene of the week too. That was definitely a contender. Aries says, I wish we would have seen a Valyrian flashback. Do you think we might see one later in the series? Yes. I think there's still room to do it. And if we're gonna explore Viserys' dreams, then potentially, I think it's possible, but not probable. I'd put it like 30% maybe. Let's see here. Roderick Spence. There's, oh, no, I read that one. There's certainly precedence of the C-section through Alyssa Velaryon, but why didn't they knock her out or at least explain what was happening? So they had said that they had already given her as much of the milk of the poppy as they could, and that it would risk the child's life to give her more. So that's why. And then not giving her a choice, we talked about that. Yeah, it was meant to show that women don't have a choice ultimately, but you can certainly, that's what made it, messed up, like we said. Okay, got some of these. I'm just scrolling through here. Keishov says, love how they kept switching between the tourney and the labor. Despite both being gore, I was perfectly fine watching a guy's head getting battered, but got squeamish during the labor. Truly a battlefield. And I do think that was part of the point of juxtaposing that, is to say, hey, you guys, see this kind of violence. And obviously it's more than just raw violence. Like, it's less sad. Like, knights are choosing to enter into a tourney where they might get killed. So that's not the same as a woman being held down while all of that happened, obviously. But at the same time, as far as what we see and consume, it's like, yes, if we're going to call them both battlefields, that's what I said at the opening. We kind of have to show what that means, or else it's just something that you say and it becomes trite. Uniquely Stellar says, inside the episode touched on timing the birth with Kristen Cole's fight. Also, this is what women suffered at the hands of men. Yeah, I did notice that it was Kristen and Daemon fighting during the pinnacle moment, because obviously Daemon and Kristen is a big rivalry that drives this whole thing. That was the point of that, right, guys?
Right.
Yeah. Gabe the Griffin says, Nan and I were absolutely glued to the screen I'm in agreement with Girl Nettles. Pronounce it how you want. Time for sleeps, though. Love you, family. Right on, Gabe. Yeah, some of our East Coasters, it's getting late for them. And Europe is watching this tomorrow, unless you're completely insane or so hyped that you can't go to sleep. The Hash Knight Squisher for 4 months says, Rhaenyra's dragon was as golden as I always knew it was. I've always felt like the maesters portrayed Syrax as yellow to downplay her compared to Sunfire. Hey, that's interesting. So I noticed that they called the Kingsguard says that golden beast. And I was like, oh, the nerds are going to get angry on Twitter because Syrax is yellow. Syrax! It's Syrax, Dave! And he's yellow, not gold. Is that right, Cleo? This is the nerd rage, see?
Look at the wings! Oh my gosh, Cleo!
Oh yeah,
Show
no,
it
yeah. Touchdown, girl. Touchdown. That's right. It's a touchdown.
Oh my gosh!
Good girl. That's right. So, yeah, that's an interesting theory that Syrax was called yellow, and then Sunfire's the most beautiful dragon who ever lived. It's all like hyperbolic. Like, that's cool. That's interesting. What do you think of that?
We'll see. I don't think anything of it until I see Sunfire, by comparison.
I was going to say the same thing. Like, I need to see Sunfire on screen to really compare.
And Carl Karsnug makes a good. He's mentioning that, boys also have a duty to die for the realm, and it's just kind of the same for women. So yeah, you definitely could make that comparison. And I think Martin spends a lot of time writing about the sorrow of knights who are sent off to war, basically, infantrymen like chaff, like wheat to the harvest, lambs to the slaughter. There's various metaphors used. The broken man speech is entirely dedicated to the cost of war, even when you don't die. So yeah, it's not really an overly gendered thing. It's part of medieval life. It's a part of like how people are using power, who's on top in power structures, and sort of the grist. I pointed out that the medieval society takes children as soon as they hit puberty, male and female, and throws them into these political marriages and with expectations and stuff, and the childhood is gone, and they're used as pawns to various degrees. So there's a lot of grist mills that grind people up here, and it's definitely the boys too. And of course, later on in the story, when we get to the war, there'll be plenty of deaths to mourn there too. I think that's the more obvious thing. So they're giving you the, we're talking about this other thing first. But yes, definitely, Carl, that's worth pointing out. Let's see. And my chat, King Viserys says the dragons caused the doom. I saw you say that a couple times. So I think he's mostly talking about the Valyrians' kind of lust for power, the way that they used the dragons. It's not like the dragons blew up the volcanoes, but it's just kind of like, we have to be careful with these dragons and the power that they bring because the Valyrians blew themselves up somehow. I think that was the point of it.
I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that the dragons caused the doom.
Yeah, well, he mentioned when he was talking about Valyria and just the idea that the dragons are dangerous and stuff, and a Targaryen king has to know that. The thing they have to know is how dangerous dragons are, and part of that was, Valyria. So the videos I did this week are looking pretty on the money, weren't they? Talked about the doom and lizard babies, and by the way, we did get Emma saying, I wouldn't be surprised if I actually had a dragon. That was awesome, wasn't it? I mean, awesome if you like lizard people and stuff.
Lizard people, yeah.
Yeah. And guys, there's 1,200 people in the chat right now, so I don't know how many people are seeing my videos, but if you're wondering about the lizard people thing, I did do a video this week about lizard people. So many funny memes were had. Continuing on with the super chats, Michael David says, guys, that episode was giving 10 out of 10. Please tell me that the Long Night King prophecy wasn't talking about episode 3 in season 8. You guys are awesome. So happy I'm catching you live. So this is kind of a thing where we're almost throwing shade at Game of Thrones here, aren't we? Because Game of Thrones completely minimized the prince that was promised, Azor Ahai, Jon's dragon blood. None of that fucking mattered. It was only a political tool to undermine Daenerys' claim at the end of it. That's the only way they used it. Arya's the one who killed the Night King. So we're down to like, well, Jon and Dany were kind of important. They were there too, doing stuff. So that's not the fulfillment of a goddamn prophecy. Jon like almost getting to the Night King, but then there's just too many whites in the way and he can't get there, and he has to yell at the Ice Dragon instead until Arya like that's. Let's not go back there, okay? But the point is, like, it's almost like House of the Dragon is acting like that didn't happen, and we're going back to the book canon here. And this foreshadowing is about what Jon and Dany are gonna do at the end of the books. Am I right? You froze for a second.
Sorry.
You with me now? Okay, you're there. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Am I right? Am I right?
You're right. You're
Okay.
right.
Yeah, you are.
Which is
Exactly
cool.
what I was thinking.
I mean, that's
This is
very
like
encouraging.
almost
It's very
the rewrite of
hopeful.
Season 8.
We're moving on, right? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, if you've been on Twitter and you see all of the blue check marks who call themselves journalists up in an uproar because, like, angry that the show isn't going to hold their hand. Like, we're going to get Rhaenys and Rhaenyra. We're going to have the similar sounding names. We're not going to do this Asha becomes Yara differentiate. It's like, no, you need to actually pay attention. Like, sorry, you have to pay attention. Like, and I think, like, I like what George said. Like, no, you need to give credit to the audience that they're going to be smart enough to know what's going on. Like, and that's
right.
the problem with so much modern television is quit dumbing it down. Like, you need to have faith that people are gonna recognize things, that they'll catch on. You need to have the faith in them. Like, maybe they won't get it right away, but they'll figure it out. Like, nothing, we don't have to keep dumbing everything down just to try and get all the casual viewers on board.
It seems like they're following through with that, aren't they? They still gave you enough. Like, they said everyone's names. They said, okay, this is before Daenerys. But other than that, this feels like we're back to treating the viewers like adults again.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I'm so here for it. So going back to that scene, what we were talking about with the cuts between Emma giving birth and the joust, what I was thinking is, like, only death can pay for life. And even though I know the outcome, I know about Heir for a Day, I was hoping that if there was a change, it was like all those deaths on the jousting field would pay for Emma's child to be born. But of course, I was a sucker.
No, I do think it's thematically resonant. I will say that. You were not supposed to, like, obviously no one's doing a blood magic thing, but you do see how, like, many things are sacrificed just so Viserys can create an heir. That was the vibe of it. And Corlys and Rhaenys are sitting there saying, is this the best way to celebrate, you know, the birth of the new king, really, with a display of casual wanton violence? Like, I thought that was loved that perspective. Hashtag Team Smallfolk. Thank you, Rhaenys and Corlys. We're going to like them, aren't we? They're going to be like...
We're going to like them, yeah.
They're going to be like our grounding, like our root. Like, everything else is crazy and friggin' insane. We have those two at least, right? So...
But Corlys is already a flip-flopper, though. We already saw that he said Daemon, then he was like, oh, wait, Rhaenyra, and then he was like... So, it's interesting. He's going to be gray, I feel
He's
like.
pro-Daemon right now, it seems. Yeah, for sure. He stuck up for Daemon in the small council. Like, hey, we put him in charge because we wanted him to, like, improve shit, and he's improving shit. Like, what's the problem here?
And he did it. I shout out to the Gold Cloaks, like, how they came out. I mean... Yeah, they were chopping off hands, but the way they just came out in formation, I was so impressed. I was like, this is the militia I want protecting me and mine.
Okay, so we got to stop and do scene of the week right now. I'm declaring it. It's not even on the damn list. I think the Emma Aaron scene has to almost be set aside. It is the scene of the week. I don't think you could pick anything else that is so intense that it's almost on its own thing. So after that, just to give her the respect, okay? that scene, there can't be any... But, like, after that, I thought that the Daemon, Prince of the City, Gold Cloak crackdown scene flowing right into the small council where Daemon is then making his case to Otto was such a good 1-2 punch. Because when he started the raid, you're like, this is horrible police violence. This is the worst kind of enforcement of the law possible. And then as it goes on, they're saying, yep, rapist, and they're chopping it off. It's like, okay, well, fuck the rapist, you know? And then you get to the small council, and he's like, the city's lawless, and many people find it terrifying. You'd know that if you got out of your ivory tower. And you're like, ooh, he's right about that. It's like a bunch of nobilities coming to the city. We wouldn't want their pockets to get picked now, would we? And it's like, ooh, he's got him again. Bam, bam, down goes Sir Otto. So, like, how about that was my scene of the week. What did you guys think?
Tim, you go first.
for me, it's up to like, because it's a constant I enjoyed every scene of Otto Hightower getting smacked down, from the one you just described to then to when he picks his son as his first opponent, when he asks for his daughter's favor. Like every scene where Daemon just gets to just like jam his elbow in Otto Hightower's ribs, those were my favorite ones, because, and it just goes to show, like, again, like every problem that Otto Hightower has is like of his own making. It's that meme, like, congrats, you played yourself. Because he keeps jockeying Daemon to these different positions, but then having a problem with it, because his problem is simply Daemon.
The Daemon exists, right? Yeah.
That Daemon exists. That's it. As long as Daemon breathes, Otto Hightower will never be happy.
And by the way, I am pro due process. Don't like take me the wrong way. I thought the scene was great. Obviously, it's very questionable rounding up all those people.
That guy, right before they castrate that guy, he farts. I was like, I actually had to like double back. I'm like, was there a fart sound? Like he fucking farted.
But let's
are we adding a little bit of comedy to this right before he gets his balls chopped off?
Yeah, maybe that was like a nervous fart. Now there was somebody that commented. Somebody left a great comment this morning on my thing that was like, Rhaenyra farts and you guys talk about it for 5 hours, And
what?
I appreciated that. Well, that's what we do on YouTube. Obviously, that's why it was a hilarious comment. But I retweeted, I screen capped it and tweeted it. And was like, now I want to make a picture of like a video with a red arrow pointing at Rhaenyra's ass to be like, there's the fart, circle, circle, arrow, arrow. But anyways,
it's brown, it's green.
Anyway, so scene of the week. Tim, what was your scene of the week?
Yeah, my scene of the week is gonna go to Daemon and the Gold Cloaks like bringing out the king's justice, but in a very brawn way.
Okay, so you're with me. You're with me on that one. So Nettles, what was your scene of the week then?
For me, it was when the lords like bowed and proclaimed that Rhaenyra would be the heir. Because in the books, I imagined it being like Viserys saying, Rhaenyra's the heir. Do you guys agree? And everyone's like, aye, and they bow. But in this show, they showed that these guys moved their lips and said, I like they declared it. They made an oath. And they only showed like, I think 2, but we're supposed to assume that one by one, every lord of the region said with their mouth that they would follow Rhaenyra. And I think that it's like a sleeper scene because it's there's no blood. But
and like
that sets up my argument for Team Black.
So like I thought that oh, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
I was just gonna say, like, it's because like they're interspersing as the lords are making this oath. They intersperse that with other scenes of like Rhaenyra kind of being her getting her thoughts on it, and then as it goes on, like the voices get lower as the music intensifies and we see more of Rhaenyra's point of view of things. But if I remember correctly, we get Corlys makes his oath. Otto, the Lord Hightower, Otto's brother, makes his oath. Lord Rickard. I think it's Rickard Stark or Rickard.
Yeah,
Stark?
I think it's Rickard.
But it was Corlys, a Hightower, a Stark, and Baratheon. I distinctly remember those making their oath to Rhaenyra.
So I thought that the show was using juxtaposition very well, consistently. We talked about the joust and the childbirth. During the scene of Rhaenyra getting crowned, not only did we see her getting ready, but they also started cutting in the scene with her and Viserys continuing their conversation in front of the Valyrian skull about the responsibilities of being king. And so all of that it's really nice because when you see her standing in front of the throne and all the lords gathered, you appreciate the responsibility that they're talking about in the other scene in private. So again, they're showing you things not just to save time, because we have to cover a lot of ground, but because they want you to think about the meaning and the implication of one scene on the other. And again, this is a sign of good storytelling, which is a major thing that we're all kind of like, we're a little bit burned here. Once burned, twice shy. Is that the name of we're a little nervous. Like George hasn't always chosen the best people to work with. Shout out to Linda on Linda Antonsen, whose bigotry is all over Twitter. It's absolutely disgusting. She blocked me today, by the way, on Twitter.
What?
Yes,
You're famous.
I let her know that it was in fact the height of hubris and egomania to think that she knows better than George R.R. Martin what fits the world, quote unquote. Because George, he's involved in the show, thinks that Black Valyrians are pretty cool, and Linda thinks that they don't work. So that's weird because Linda didn't write the Song of Ice and Fire last time I checked. So I let her know that. She did not appreciate it. And in case you didn't know, I'm sorry to break it to you that Linda Antonsen is not a very nice person and her views are rather distasteful, but you can check that out and be your own judge on Twitter if you want to. She is very public about her opinions about all of this. So I am not doxing anyone. Like Linda Antonsen co-wrote The World of Ice and Fire. I got nothing against Elio, her husband, but she has been a menace online for a long time. So if you didn't know, I'm sorry to let you know, but I will stand behind that assessment. And again, you can judge for yourself online and tell me if I'm wrong. But anyways, so that's that. So I'm sorry, I didn't know that was coming. But anyways, this stuff is always on the tip of my tongue because I read all my comments. Me and Minty read them all. I sort through them, and I'll be damned if like there isn't 3 or 4 a day that just make me just like, on the Corliss video. So it's like it's really? A small. Still? Because people are finding my channel a lot right now, which is great. Okay. Obviously, thank you guys. My channel's growing. Subs are through the roof. Videos are doing awesome. That's why I have the energy to put out so much content. I'm fired up about it, obviously. But with that comes, yes, exposure to new people. And there's, sometimes it's just like, well, I've talked about it enough. Anyways, let's move on. But all I'll say is they're a very small minority. They try to be as vocal as they can. And their comments stick out because they're so awful. That's really what it comes down to. But yeah. So in any case, I usually delete those so that my comment sections on my videos are like friendly places to hang out. You go there to leave a comment, read a comment. You're not going to be assaulted with like, oh my God, bleach my eyes out kind of stuff. So I usually try to get rid of those. Anyways, sorry, let's get back on the rails here with some of these super chats. Let's see. Michael David. No, I read that one. Let's see here. Trey Diaz says, I'm surprised King Viserys was the standout for me. The acting of Paddy Considine was amazing. I think that after Daemon stole Matt Smith's Daemon is so powerful. It's obviously very tough to compete with. But at the same time, yeah, the Viserys, he had some amazing scenes. He really did. Anything to add, or is it just, agreement on that? I don't know.
I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm an actor. I've acted since I was 9. I went to art school, arts middle school, arts high school, everything like that. Honestly, Viserys would have won. Like, if we used to give kind of like awards out for the best actor of the day or in the scene or whatever, it would have been Paddy. It would have been Viserys because just his eyes. Just his eyes.
And then in the small council, like when he broke, Otto's pushing him, and then all of a sudden he's pushed him to Tim's point, Otto, making his own problems worse. He like pushes him, and then he just breaks, and you can see the rage there. Like, I think that's what George was talking about when he said Paddy's Viserys is just a stronger character, even though he is ultimately a weak king who doesn't do enough and just tries to hold everything together with well-wishing. And everything I've said about him not claiming a dragon and all that stuff, he still has a lot of fire and he still has some strength. And I love how they're playing it. So yeah, bravo.
Paddy's gonna make me like Viserys. I never liked Viserys. I mean, I didn't hate Viserys, but it was just kind of like, let me just read through this so I can get to Daemon. Let me read through this so I can get to Nettles. But like, Paddy is bringing Viserys to life, and he's one of those sleeper characters that I'm gonna fall in love with.
Yeah, it's a great character. Again, saying someone's a great character is not the same as saying I approve all of their actions or whatever. No. But it's definitely a great character, and we're getting in his feelings. Like we're feeling what he's feeling. We're feeling the turmoil. We go from basically being ready to kill him after the Emma scene, like fuck King Viserys, and then all of a sudden in the small council scene, we're taking his side again because it's like, yeah, leave him alone. His wife just died. God. So
was that right after the funeral?
It was.
When
It
Otto,
was like
by the way,
right after.
this is.
Right.
It was it was the night of.
Yeah, it was before the funeral.
It couldn't wait.
No. That's yeah. Otto is literally that guy. Yeah, it couldn't wait.
In Otto's defense, I guess he's really scared of Daemon, and he felt like now that you don't have a wife, Daemon is gonna kill you and take the throne. So I can put myself in people's shoes. So I can see why Otto wanted to get it done. But damn.
So going forward here, I am going to get these super chats. Desmond says, I think it was the first Targ funeral that we've seen. Definitely the first proper Targaryen funeral. And I almost brought that up when you were voting on Dragon of the Week. Ah, yes, Syrax was in that scene too. Yeah, so yeah. I mean, like I said, I voted for Syrax just because it's so easy to give it to Caraxes every week. Caraxes is the best boy. I mean, he's got a big long neck and he's got a grinning wolf face. Like, there's my Caraxes look.
This is the best boy right here. This is the best boy.
Cleo's getting riled up. She's like, hey, what about me?
Oh, dang.
Cleo Raxes.
Cleo's like, I'm real.
Then we've got, moving on, Crimson Templar. 7-month squish. Remember, the prophecy is going to get lost, muddled because of the dance. The chain of communication from king to heir is going to get broken. That seems like a good prediction. We've always got Baelor the Blessed to burn whatever survives down to his day, of course. But I do think that, yeah, you wonder, like, without spoiling how this is going to end, it's like a lot of these characters are going to die suddenly or tragically. So does this prophecy get related down to the people in charge at the end? That's a very good question. Possibly not. And that would make the tragedy bigger, right? But I don't know. There'll be a scroll left in the library for Rhaegar to find, obviously. So, and Duncan, and in the Duncan Egg story, we see Egg talking about King Aerys reading scrolls of prophecy and talking about dreams. And Bloodraven says Targaryens have been having prophetic dreams since before the conquest. So I think that some amount of knowledge does survive past the dance, but we'll have to keep our eye on that. That, you know, the knife is still around.
Can I insert a quick theory here?
Yeah.
Do you think that the riders of the black dragons are the ones with the dreams? Because Viserys says, okay, in that scene with
Daemon the Fiddler,
Rhaenyra,
or John the Fiddler, and also Daemon the Drunkard.
Right, but I mean,
and Maester Aemon.
Viserys says that, well,
And
the ones that
Aegon
have
Bright-
dragons.
Yeah.
Because he says that Aegon had, the dream about the White Walkers. Viserys says he has a dream. He has the same dragon as Aegon, and then we know that Daenerys has these dreams. And like maybe it's the big picture dreams, because I think there's a connection between just going off of this first episode. It seemed like they were drawing a big connection between Aegon and Viserys. And the only connection I could see is Valyrian.
Well, I think it's just that the king is the heir to the prophetic knowledge. I think that's what it is. It's the secret. It's the knowledge that's the burden.
But Viserys did have a dream about his son sitting the throne.
Well, I think that's good because he doesn't have a dragon, so it makes him more like a Targaryen. He's not just some dude wearing a wig. You know,
he did have a dragon. He doesn't have a dragon anymore.
Right.
There's a big distinction.
Right. Well, he doesn't have one now. So
now, yeah.
We think of Viserys as a dragon rider just because he rode Balerion the Black Dread once.
Well, he would like us to think that. I always
want to like, asterisk. You need to like.
Oh wait, Tim.
It's like the Lakers bubble chip. That's what it is. It's the bubble chip.
But does it explicitly say that he only rode him once?
One time. And he was going to fly him to Dragonstone, but he didn't think he could make it. And so they went 3 times around the city and landed, and that was it.
Is it once that the people saw, or just once forever?
Just once.
So then how did he claim him then?
He claimed him when he rode him.
By riding it?
That's how you claim. Yeah, it's not official unless you could get on the back and ride the dragon. You haven't claimed it until you've done that. So yeah.
Like my head canon is that at that when Viserys claims Balerion is so old and knows his days are coming, he's just like, yeah, I don't fucking care. Let's go.
He's going to be more docile potentially. Yeah, and I also think that backs up what Miguel Sapochnik has done with sweet old lady Vhagar, saying, "Oh well, it's hell to get her off the ground," and She might injure herself when she lands. She's falling apart. Like, Balerion got old. Like, dragons live forever, maybe. They grow forever, maybe. That's not for sure. That's just something that they say is said by people. But we know Balerion was old, sluggish, and weakened to the point where he could not fly very far anymore. So what they've done with the old dragons is in keeping with the book canon. I just thought I'd point that out. So, all right.
If Balerion, sorry, I was gonna say if Balerion didn't go to Valyria and get scraped with something maybe magical, would he have deteriorated so fast? With Arya?
No, I think Balerion was pushing 300 when he passed, so I think his time was just nearing naturally.
Yeah, when was the Arya thing? That was like a good
Arya
40
was
years.
Daenerys' daughter. Yeah,
that was in the 50s, and 94 AC is when he died. So that's 40 years earlier. So it's probably a little more young, obviously, then, you know.
Okay.
But maybe the wounds, maybe Balerion never totally recovered from those wounds, you know?
That's what I'm saying. I feel like Balerion's deterioration had to be magical because I just choose to believe
okay.
that
I'm sorry. I missed
dragons
you saying that. No, I like that. That could be. Yeah, I could get with that.
Because I would like to believe that dragons can live forever if there's not a magical influence making it not possible.
Minty's saying, I hope they call her Vagar on the show. That would just make everyone's head explode.
Vagar.
I will have a victory party if that's the case. Okay, so is it possible his dream is misinterpreted and that it's really a Balerion memory metaphor and his dream is actually about Aegon the Conqueror? No, all the dragon dreams seem to be prophetic, not about the past. So we have not. I just went through all of them for the video that I haven't put out yet. So I would say no. JC says that he thinks it's out of character, or they think it's out of character, that Viserys did not ask Aemma. I could see that argument, but I think they're trying to show us that Viserys is obsessed with having an heir. So,
out of character for Viserys, or out of character for
Viserys? Yeah, that's the claim. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I could see that, but Viserys' character is being defined on the show, so it's hard to say if it doesn't fit because you can't really take the fire and blood Viserys for the truth. So, Amy, or For My People, says, based on what I saw, I think it was just Daemon being Daemon and not something malicious. I think that's about the comment.
Heir for a day.
Yeah, the heir for a day. Otto is so salty for Daemon, it's almost funny. The next Maecor, okay, buddy, LOL. And that's from Poos Unpoos. And I did want to also make a video about Maegor. I didn't get to it. But Maegor's shadow does loom over the story. And you heard Rhaenys mention Maegor, like, oh, it's been so many years and these people have no idea. But some people do remember. And the shadow of Maegor is something you can use as like an example of when it goes bad. So it's definitely a stretch to call Daemon another Maegor. But it's just showing you, like, they're afraid of any true dragon, really, is what it comes down to. And they'll be afraid of Rhaenyra when she gets older. Like, Otto's only glomming to Rhaenyra because Daemon is currently the threat. But then later, he says the same shit about Rhaenyra that he said about Daemon, so.
Can I say that Otto's gay for Daemon?
Is there I could repressed attraction, like he wants to be him, or maybe, yeah.
Like obsession, it's like...
It's everything that Otto isn't. I'll say that. He's everything Otto isn't. So
when you think about someone that much, you know, they say there's a thin line between love and hate. Like, and I grew up around like Christians. I knew two men that were like Christian but gay, and even to this day, they say they will never act on their gay impulses, and they just repress them. But just going off this one episode, what I saw from Otto reminds me of what they describe their feelings are, where it's like the person invades your mind without you even wanting them to.
So guys, I need to go and put Goose to bed. I need you guys to handle this for about 3 minutes or so, which I'm sure would be easy to do. If you want to go to you naming your hero and villain of the week, you can, or you can just kick it with the chat. But yeah, just give me a couple minutes and I'll be right back.
I already
folks.
have a question for you, Tim. Bye, David. See ya.
Okay, I'll be right back. I'm trying to see if I can mute my screen and put a logo up, but I don't know if I can. Go ahead.
Tim, Tim, you were talking about the joust and Allison giving Daemon her favor.
Mhm.
Did anyone else think of like his jousting stick and her putting okay, his jousting stick and her putting the circular wreath?
You're looking for like the double entendre in that?
Go ahead.
Oh no, it's definitely there because I do think they're gonna try and build up. Like, okay, jumping ahead. I mean, I don't want to go too deep into spoiler territory, but when we think
it can't
of like
be spoiler because it's just a
yeah, but when we get to Aemond One Eye, I do think they want to play up the sexual tension between Allison and Daemon, so that when we get introduced to Aemond One Eye, we can have those questions of, is he Viserys' son or is he Daemon? Like, I think they want to build that up so that they can make even more ambiguous things with
I
that.
never thought so from the text. I never ever thought that was a possibility from the text, but the show, and maybe it's like you guys or whatever getting in my head, but I saw so many little Allison Daemon moments as much as there was Rhaenyra Daemon moments.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, because that's what we're going to get when this show starts fleshing out characters more, like how you were brought up, like, when Viserys, like, Paddy Considine's portrayal is really fleshing out the character more. Like, when I first read Fire and Blood, Viserys didn't really stand out. He's like think of like presidents. Like, everyone remembers George Washington and Abe Lincoln. Who the fuck remembers like Rutherford B. Hayes? Viserys is kind of like one of those kings almost. He's like one of those, the ones that you kind of like when you're trying to name all the Targaryen kings, he becomes one of those ones is like, which one? Like, what the fuck was his name? Like that, he's in that kind of list. So I think Paddy, what they're doing with the show, really fleshing out Viserys' character, especially with Paddy Considine's portrayal, is going to give us a whole new layer to Viserys, make us see him in a whole different light that we didn't get from just the text. And that's part of what I was getting to before when I said, like, because part of the limitations of Fire and Blood as a story is because it's written like a history text. Like, we're not going to get emotion like we're going to get from the show.
Right. I want to read what Michael Spinelli says. Shout out to Spinelli from Recess. That was like my favorite show growing up. Michael Spinelli says, I really thought Allison just was happy to have the attention. She's so jealous of Rhaenyra. I think he's talking about what we're talking about with the joust moment. Did you catch that? Some jealousy or rivalry with Rhaenyra and Allison?
I mean, I think that's always going to be there when you know that your best friend is also the princess. Like, even if Allison didn't ever envision a life as queen for herself, like, again, that's something that her father's really going to push herself into. There always is going to be that sort of sense of envy when you have like.
Don't you remember when Allison was yelling at Rhaenyra and she was like, "Don't you care that you're next in line?" Like early when she's like sleeping on her lap or resting on her lap.
Yeah, and when Rhaenyra has the response of like, "No, I really don't care. I like this position," and then when Rhaenyra has that other line of like, "I'd rather be a knight out in the field." I think it's supposed to like we're supposed to make like a Rhaenyra Arya connection and that kind of point. And
but
that
Allison is so angry.
Sansa.
You think Allison Sansa?
I think like that scene, we're supposed to make a connection of look at Rhaenyra, because another thing the show is going to do, that the show needs to do, is, I mean, it's going to appeal to book readers like us, but it also needs to be able to have broad appeal to the more casual viewer. So there's always going to be these times where the show's going to kind of make these inferences to make you think about other characters that are more familiar from the show, so that people who haven't read the books and are show watchers only are still going to have like a point of reference and be like, oh yeah, he's kind of like, oh, Daemon, yeah, he's kind of like the Jaime. I think that scene with Rhaenyra and Allison is supposed to make us think of like Arya and Sansa. So you have a point of reference to be like, okay, I could kind of see where these characters are coming from.
So who do you think is the hottest girl? Oh, sorry.
I'm just to tag on to what I just heard. I think that the character parallels operate for only limited windows and situations. So like when Alicent launches the coup, it's very like Cersei and Robert. But in other situations, Rhaenyra parallels Cersei, but only in some ways. Mostly Rhaenyra is not Cersei. So I feel like, yeah, to what Tim is saying, the similar situations give us good points to compare the characters, but there's really never a one-to-one repeat of any character. No. So, yeah. Although
but George loves to reuse his little tropes.
He does.
To remind us of people with their names, Theon Stark is bloodthirsty, all types of stuff.
And I think that's the only way to make such a big universe coherent with so many characters. And also it's good for symbolism and stuff. All the people are hot on this show. I'm too old to be talking about any of these women publicly and not like, yeah, I'm just going to stick to like saying that Fabian Frankel's really good looking, and just,
For me, it was Emma. I thought Emma was the hottest girl in this episode, and it cut even more. Her wig was laid, okay? Her wig was laid. Even in childbirth, she was looking, I was like, damn, Emma. Like, because I don't like spoilers, so I watched the trailer once. And, like, I don't like to look up who the actors are because I just want to, like,
Yeah.
So I didn't know. I never saw Emma, and I was like, when I saw her, I was like, I couldn't take my eyes off her, and I'm like, dang, I already know how this outcome is gonna be. Now I have to find another lover.
So right on, I appreciate that. Okay, so let me go turn the light out here on the cockatoo, and I'll be right back. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Okay. But like the thing that I guess that I want to say I appreciate about the show is that, it's going to be great for us book readers because we can look at everything and be like, yeah, I know this and see what's happened to change. But at the same time, and they're not going to dumb it down, which I very much appreciate. But at the same time, when you're running a show, it needs to be accessible to the casual viewer. Now, I started out as a show watcher. I started reading the main books when I was waiting on, I think it was between season 6 and season 7 is when I started reading the books. And then when COVID hit, I was really late to the game with the books. And then when COVID hit, that's when I really like took the deep plunge into like the World of Ice and Fire and the Dunk and Egg novels. And that's when I became like, oh,
Reddit?
And then
Were you on Reddit?
Oh yeah, I was on. That's where I got my start on Reddit. And then when I see things like City of the Bloodless Men, I'm like, oh, you should tell me more about that. And that's where the Grey Waste Tim persona kicked off. But yeah, I started as a show watcher only, so until I got into the book. So when you have the show, you don't want to dumb it down for the audience, but you do want to make it accessible for people. And that's what I think this show is going to be treading the line. And so far, I think they're doing a great job of it.
So I loved seeing King's Landing like all shiny and new, like Flea Bottom. I was like, this isn't the Flea Bottom that Arya showed me.
No, everything is bigger. Like just when you're in the Red Keep and they gave us the shot up the stairwell, that really tall stairwell, like that was beautiful to me. Breathtaking. I love big open spaces. I feel like that's what Sapochnik brings, because he's mostly in charge of like the on the set production of how things are going. And I feel like all of his episodes of GOT were kind of like that. He did the battle scenes that have the bigger scope of stuff, the more epic feel. And I think that he's kind of brought that to almost every scene or just to the show in general. So it's also a bigger budget. You can build bigger sets and do all that. So that's just, yeah, it looked like a fantasy series. Minty had several comments along those lines. Right from the beginning with Rhaenyra flying the dragon, landing in the castle, being called princess as she hops off the dragon. It's very much like, this is a fantasy show. We're embracing it, I
just want to say that the chat agrees with me that Aemma is the girl, the it girl. That's Aemma's Regina George.
I predicted that she would be the surprise thing that everyone talks about, and not just because of the death scene. Like, she just had a strong presence throughout the whole episode, and they did such a good job of building up the character. And to me, that's one of the things that George does the best about his writing, because of his short story skills, is he can create a character like Nimble Dick or Varamir, or it's somebody that just you don't know. What's that?
I said Thistle.
Thistle. Right, like characters that you know almost nothing about and you get attached to in a short amount of time. So the fact the show can do that as well is very good, and it's also a good match for Martin's writing, in my opinion. So let's see here. Squish Remembered Deck Discobra says, was the tourney oddly enough too violent? Yeah, I didn't understand why they were killing each other and not using blunted weapons. I was confused about that too.
I
Like
thought that was
Damon's
supposed to
using
be
a
like a
Valyrian
melee.
steel. What?
Yeah, that was crazy. What was that
Yeah.
about?
I thought that was the melee, like the melee portion of the tourney.
But it wasn't. It was literally during the joust every single time.
Yeah, it seemed like the joust, if it went a certain way, they had the opportunity to then melee after, but it's just the two of them, so it's just single combat essentially. And yeah, the guy killed the other guy with the fucking axe to the face. I mean, that was definitely killing.
That guy, the sore loser.
No,
Yeah,
I was so confused because going back to Game of Thrones, we saw Robert say, "Stop this madness in the name of the
Yeah,
king,"
it's supposed to be
seemed
blunted.
like-
Maybe things are just more barbaric back then, I guess, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like to get a clarification on that, like on a behind the episode. I don't know if they talked about it, but yeah, I'm confused why they're not using blunted weapons and stuff. So
I'm confused as why they're doing that at all. If you lose the joust, you get on your horse and you go away. Because, like, well, I guess Duncan Egg is after this. I was going to say, because even in Duncan Egg, no one is doing that. But yeah, maybe it was just more barbaric. But doesn't all of these customs come from the Faith of the Seven? Like their stuff? Like knights, jousts, tourneys?
I think that's true. Yeah, it definitely comes from the Reach. That's where the chivalric tradition comes from. Yeah.
So
So
barbarians,
people, I'm still reading the chat here, and people are saying that in real medieval times, it kind of like at one point the tournaments were too violent, and then that's why the rules came around. So maybe this is just a more violent period.
Yeah.
Thank you, chat.
Because I figured once Daemon, that scene where Daemon kind of goes down off the side of his horse and he's like getting like torn down that railing thing like a bowling ball going down the gutter. I was like, oh, he lost there, but no, it continues with the sort of
That was an awesome shot. Daemon getting dragged along the rail, dude. That was fucking sick. That was sick.
Yes.
When that happened, I was like, oh shit.
And can we get a moment for Kristen Cole? Like, what a boss entrance, dude.
Yeah.
Didn't you feel like you were in the joust? Like the way the camera angle was, it was like you were the lance. That was amazing. I was not expecting that.
We got the arrogant Baratheon get his comeuppance. Damon unhorsing the Hightower to mess with Otto. Like, there's a lot of nice politics going on in that tourney scene. It makes me hopeful that we'll continue to have that strong medieval Ren Fair vibe going on with this stuff. But
one of my favorite like little like, you know, I think that's going to be like maybe another section we can add is like little things that caught your eye.
Okay.
One of them was when Daemon goes up against the Hightower kid, and then Lord Beesbury, the Master of Coins, goes, "Put 5 dragons on Daemon." I'm like, oh, the Master of Coin hedging bets. That made me,
I love me some Beesbury.
I love that. I love that, like that little bit of like Lord Beesbury, like also like the Master of Coin is betting on this too.
And then of course Daemon asking for Allison's favor to spite Otto. Yeah, real nice.
But David, did you hear about the part about that same moment, like it seeming like Daemon putting his little jousting stick and then Rhaenyra putting the circular wreath? Didn't that seem kind of like even their eye contact and like Allison seemed like hesitant or ashamed?
There was still
me.
There was still tension between Daemon and Rhaenyra, even though he was getting Allison's favor, if that's what you're asking. Yes, absolutely.
No, I'm talking about the tension between Allison and Daemon specifically.
Okay, so what are you saying about it then? Oh, sorry.
He took her maidenhead, and he like, you know how guys like Daemon.
Oh, you think it's already happened? From
Maybe.
okay.
I felt something. I don't know what it was, but I felt something with that. Why are you asking Rhaenyra why are you asking Allison for her favor when the realm's delight is right there? Who's your
Because
own
he's
blood?
sticking it to Otto. Everything he's doing there is sticking it to Otto. He's
Why
taking
is Allison
Allison's favor.
reacting?
What's that?
Allison reacted to that though. Go watch it again. Her
Okay.
eyes are like downcast, like a woman that's kind of just like, yeah, he talked me into it, and I kind of enjoyed myself. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me reading into it. I never thought it during the text, but just during that little encounter, I was like, first of all, there's physical symbolism of a shaft and a circular object, and then Allison's face. I don't know.
I will have to go watch it again. I felt like Allison was very much an adjunct to that scene, and it was mainly between Daemon and Rhaenyra, and he was just getting Allison's favor as a bit of sport to tweak Otto's nose. But we'll have to see. Obviously, we're waiting to see like if there is a Daemon Allison thing, and obviously the point would be Aemon's one eye to be Daemon's son. Then they will obviously feed us a whole bunch more clues. So we'll just have to put a pin in that and watch for it. Yeah, but again on the rewatch, I'll take a look. So tension, but the Daemon Rhaenyra scenes we haven't really talked about that yet. Wow, what an intro for Daemon. I love how, forget the romance for a second. Or not even romance, this would be tension at anything, but just forget that for a second. I love the way that it's like Daemon returns to the city in the middle of the night. Rhaenyra gets word and she's all excited about it. It's like, where is he? Oh, did he just got back? And then she's like running to see him, and then he's got a gift for her. I don't know. It's just like, these are two Targaryens in a weird family, and they're kindred spirits is the bottom line. That's why they ultimately end up together. They are both kindred spirits. And I feel like Rhaenyra has just like a soft spot at this point for her rogue uncle. She knows her dad doesn't like her uncle and that her uncle gives her dad fits, but she just kind of likes him. And I don't know, the smile that she had when they opened the door and she saw him on the throne, it just showed you they have a real connection. I'm not trying to characterize that connection. It's a complicated thing, but it's definitely a connection.
No, they characterize it. When Daemon said turn around, I was like, who, me? I was like, oh. There was so much tension.
Sorry.
He said turn around.
I don't think you were the only one.
I was like, okay, Daddy.
Oh, I'm waiting for the chat to catch up with that one.
But I was like, oh, there was so much tension. Like, even like my man, he was like, here we go with the incest. And I was like, you can read that already? He was like, yeah. She's hot for her uncle. I was like, oh shit. It seemed like Rhaenyra was more into him than he was into her. What do you guys think?
Well, for me, I was curious as to whether they were going to, because again, like I avoided the leaks, so I watched this for the first time with fresh eyes. I was curious if they were going to go that route. But once he said turn around, I was like, there it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just glad that they're not treating Rhaenyra like a kid. And I try to tell people this going into the show. Yeah, okay, the chat is catching up now. And Minty, by the way, Nettles is Minty's on the same page with you here on a lot of this, I'm noticing.
Yay, Minty!
But so I told people as delicately and artfully as I could that even though Rhaenyra, we should remember that she's a teenager, she doesn't, as a woman, she does not have the same agency as the people around her. Similarly to Allison, there's powerful men around her that are manipulating her. But I told you also to remember that Rhaenyra is a dragon rider, that she has agency, that she has grown up in court. She is not like Sansa. She's a lot more like Marjorie with a dragon. And so I'm not saying that like, it's hard to talk about this because you run into almost getting next to language that is rationalizing or making okay inappropriate relationships with minors. And obviously that is not what we are trying to condone. But at the same time, you have to realize that as soon as kids hit puberty in medieval society, they are then thrown into the political game, and it is up to them to figure out what's going on around them and fight for their own agency. And that is what Rhaenyra is right in the middle of. And that is, so she's not powerless. She can fight for herself. She can make mistakes that will, she'll have to deal with the consequences of. And that's the character. It's complex, but they're not shying away from it. And so that's what I was trying to prepare people for. And now maybe you see what I mean, I guess. Thoughts?
No, I 100% endorse your statement. I am a woman. I've been through all the good things of being a woman and all the bad things of being a woman. And when I read the text, I never thought that Rhaenyra didn't have agency. And then I put myself in these characters. And do you know the amount of power you would have from being a dragon rider, regardless of your sex?
A lot.
Regardless of your sex. Being a dragon rider makes you equal with a man. Come on. So it's like, the fact that people like, oh, the uncle, the age gap, I'm like, sure, in a 2022 lens, yes, it's problematic, but I want to see where the show goes with it. But so far, I really like the fact that in every scene, doesn't it seem like Rhaenyra and Daemon are equals?
Yes.
She's looking down on him and saying, "Oh, good joust, uncle."
That's what I was
bitch.
trying to say. Like, she's almost like, you know, a teen that's grown up now and sees her uncle that's kind of a fuck up. You know, he's not married. He's kind of living like in somebody's basement. She's like, yeah, it's my fuck up uncle, but I love him. My dad doesn't want any of us to really hang out with him too much, you know, because he plays those albums that he doesn't like and might smoke weed with us or something. Like, that's the energy you're getting from Daemon. He's like the bad uncle, the black sheep of the family. But yes, Rhaenyra very much has it. It is kind of like she's looking down on him. It's sort of a endearing, like, oh, it's bad uncle. Here you are. You know, you just can't straighten up, can you? But they are kindred. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, they're kindred spirits, and both. This is valid with Laena too. Daemon is an example of a fully liberated and empowered Dragon Lord. He does what he wants all the time, and so for people like Laena or Rhaenyra who have dragons and they have that fiery dragon spirit, but are somewhat more constrained. It's understandable that they would fall in love with somebody like Daemon because he represents the fullest embodiment of that dragon energy that they themselves resonate with. So I think that's why those relationships will be good and compelling. Go ahead.
Look at Rhaenys. Doesn't it seem like Rhaenys runs that? Not maybe she doesn't run the relationship with Corlys, but you could tell she's not a victim of anything.
No.
Look at Daenerys telling Dario, "Take off your clothes." Like, yes, in medieval times, it's bad for women unless you have a dragon.
It does change. It does change. And Tim, get in on this subject here. We're shutting you out. I'm so sorry. It's mostly me. It's mostly me. But go ahead.
Well, Corlys and Rhaenys, I love that there obviously is like both not like both a love between the two and a mutual respect between the two, and the fact that Corlys is willing to throw down hands and uphold his wife's claim, and remind them of like, yo, my wife had a better claim, and he even basically says it point blank to Viserys' face, like, my wife's claim was better than yours.
No, he says, Viserys, you're sitting in my wife's seat.
Yeah.
That's what that scene read like to me. He's like, let's not get it twisted. You're sitting in my wife's seat.
It's a good example of how there's all these different cross angles hitting each other. Like, you could get sucked into the Daemon, Otto, Viserys triangle, but then there's Rhaenyra pouring wine, and she's got her own politics, and then there's the Strongs, and then there's Corlys, like, hey, don't forget about the shipping lanes, and like, yeah,
It's the thing we missed that was so sorely lacking in the later seasons of Game of Thrones is how the war of words is just as important as the war with actual swords and fire and dragons.
How about Daemon listening at the eaves outside, like...
What was that about?
That's Daemon being the rogue princess, just to show you that, like, he's not just a loose cannon. Like, he's strategic, he's intelligent, he knows how to, like, lay back and let people talk and just gather information and then make his move.
Where was he? Was he in, like, one of the birds' little wall things? Or
I see what you're saying. You're saying, does Daemon know about the secret passages and stuff? Oh, maybe. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, like Maegor. And that's that brings us back to all the Maegor parallels that they've been putting with Daemon, because Maegor is the one who had all the secret catacombs and tunnels.
I would love that if Daemon knew the secrets or some of them. That would be awesome. I hope you're right about that. Somebody had a really great comment up here. I was trying to get back to it.
It's implying that Daemon is part of the small council without being in the small council. That scene with him, like, looking in.
Oh, right. You're right. It also communicates his outsider status. Yeah. Someone commented, the way Rhaenyra was clutching the necklace during the joust. Yeah, that was very, like, one of those small details that communicated a lot of emotion. Yeah, it was a good observation. Koenig on the screen here says, a big part of what I know about this amazing universe is thanks to you. I'm having so much fun. Hello from Argentina. I'm assuming that means... Salud, so salutations, very cool. Let's see here. I had a thought that I was trying to chase it down. It's all right. I have ADHD. It's something.
Was it about Daemon, small council?
Oh, we're gonna play this game.
The birds.
Um, uh, it was. It
we're
was.
talking-
Yeah, see, it's not good entertainment to watch me try to remember stuff. It'll come back to me. It's fine. Let's see here.
There's a lot of super chats still. I know.
There's super chats, man. There's so much to talk about. I guess it doesn't matter how long we go for. It's the first episode, whatever.
People are still in the chat. What's up, people?
Yeah, we got 972 still watching here, so people aren't tired of it yet. King Viserys. Okay, we read that one. George B. The Targaryens refer to themselves as dragons. Watch Lizard People, George B. If you haven't already. J. King says, hi, new to this channel. I love Millie Alcock's Hi, that's what it was. Hi, Valyrian. It sounded supernatural. Loved the episode. Yes, so Daemon and Millie. Matt Damon and Rhaenyra Millie speaking Valyrian to each other. Yes, that raises the I mean, hearing a foreign language is always kind of magical to me because it sounds like speech, but you don't know what it means. And so there's just something really interesting to that. And the Valyrian that they've created is very musical sounding. It's very kind of old Latin sounding, maybe. I don't know if that's right, but to me it kind of sounds that way. And maybe just because I think about the Valyrians as Romans, but very cool. And it's just like more of that little bond that they share that other people don't. Were they talking about Viserys around Viserys by using Valyrian and assuming that he couldn't understand it? Or were they just talking quietly at the funeral?
I was confused. I didn't know.
Because Rhaenyra's like, I hope he was happy for the day that his son was alive. Like, that's a pretty fucking edgy thing to say. Was she thinking only Daemon could hear her, or what?
It could be either. Like, yeah, we don't know whether Viserys speaks High Valyrian or not.
That would be funny if they use it to, like, talk shit around him. That would be fun.
I mean, it would be if Viserys can't speak High Valyrian, that would actually be a good character trait because it shows even more of his disconnection from his roots, along with him not being a dragon rider.
Well, that and like
that's why I was saying maybe he doesn't know it. Yeah,
because Tyrion kind of speaks because he's learned. It's kind of something that's like nerds. Like you have a certain like IQ level to have an interest in learning it because it's not necessary for you to know High Valyrian. But if you're a nerd, you're gonna learn it.
So, okay, so I'm working my way to the chats. I've almost caught up to the ones that are on the screen. I'm so close. Let me press on. Tori Carson says, and thank you, everybody, for sending in super chats. Seen complaints about the gender roles in Game of Thrones, but for me, I always felt fantasy lets us understand what medieval women went through in a different context. Yeah, gender roles exist in life, and they are going to be in every story. Just because you don't show somebody rebelling against them doesn't mean they're not in the story. So, yeah, a lot of that. I feel like there's a certain kind of person that wants media to be apolitical, which is not possible at all. And now it's gone so far that like anything that becomes a modern political issue that's sensitive is somehow off limits as subject matter for like TV shows now. It's very strange. We won't dwell on it because I think everyone knows how I feel about that stuff. So, But yeah, we're on the same page here. Monica says, hello there. I love that they mentioned Daenerys at the beginning, but I wanted to know what you thought of them mentioning and highlighting her name and not Jon's name or even Rhaegar. I mean, I think that the prophecy refers to both Jon and Daenerys, and I think that Rhaegar's not going to mention Rhaegar. There's no way to mention Rhaegar, but we're supposed to be thinking of Rhaegar when we see these Targaryens interpreting prophecy. This is basically slowly giving us clues about what Rhaegar was actually going through, because that's the mystery. Rhaegar is a mystery. The Tower of Joy, what was he doing? And by the way, did you notice the line "Promise me" that they used? It was Viserys to Rhaenyra. Was that who said it? I forget now who said it, but they used the "Promise me" line. And it was connected to that the Long Night prophecy. Can somebody remember in the chat? I thought it was
chat, help us.
I thought it was Viserys telling Rhaenyra to promise him that she would remember the prophecy or something like that. But I took that as a RLJ shout out because "Promise me, Ned" is such a big line. Another line that they shouted out was the Feast for Crows. Viserys said he wasn't going to sit around. My wife and son are dead. I will not suffer crows to feast on their corpses. So that was another cool use of a Song of Ice and Fire language. Yeah.
Favorite book of the main series.
Oh, another great line. This family already has a Visenya. That was Viserys about Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
That was
Don't
dope.
Don't compare me to other bitches. I'm my own bitch. I'm new. I love it.
Yeah. I just like the comparison because of course Rhaenyra wears a long braid because she idolizes Visenya, and Rhaenyra names one of her children Visenya eventually.
Okay,
So
yeah.
that was very cool. Yeah, and it was Promise Me Rhaenyra. It was Viserys to Rhaenyra. So again, it's about the prophecy. That's why I think it was an intentional connection to Jon, because Jon's part of the fulfillment of that prophecy that they were discussing. So very cool resonance there. A lot of cool little love notes to A Song of Ice and Fire, but subtle, and they fit in well. Christopher Doran says, thanks for all your work. Your crown is amazing. Caraxes and Nettles is gorgeous. Love the hair. Yeah, by the way, you went all out with the eyebrows. Let's just take a minute to appreciate. Very, very nice.
I noticed that Rhaenyra had brown eyebrows. I was like, what's going on? Listen, this took 10 minutes to do.
I always see, even me, like when I wear my Targaryen wig, I always shave my beard down so that it gets like lighter. Because it
looks weird if you have the beard.
It kind of does. Yeah, it doesn't look right. Yeah. But maybe I could start a trend. That'll be the new dark eyebrows, light hairs, like dark beard, light hair. Wait, it's just Guy Fieri, isn't it? It's Guy Fieri. That's who does that.
Guy Fieri.
Isn't it?
Have you ever had a Guy Fieri burger? Sorry, this is off topic.
No, I don't know.
I fucking had it on a Carnival cruise, and it's the best burger I've ever fucking had. I don't know how. I don't know why. It's the best burger. So yeah, the bleach works for burger making.
Well, we appreciate your dedication to excellence, and you look fantastic. So thank you, Tim. We expect you to bleach your eyebrows next week. Jack Lewis. Jack Lewis. This is so funny. A super chat sent many minutes ago. He's probably dying listening to us talking for the last 5 minutes. His super chat was, "Promise me, Rhaenyra. Promise me, Ned. Both promises to secure the Song of Ice and Fire." So thank you, Jack Lewis. I just should have read your super chat 10 minutes ago. You had the answer I was looking for. But yes, that was definitely a standout. Uniquely Stellar says, I think Otto wrote The Citadel about the wound that won't heal. Made me think back to him telling the maester to keep it quiet. There's a lot of shady shit going on in just one episode, isn't there? The damn Old Town faction. It's the only way to make the Hightowers interesting. They have to do this conspiracy, I swear. Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, like, that's something that we didn't get to discuss yet, is how much Viserys keeps cutting himself on the throne, and the symbolism of that, of how the Iron Throne knows who's worthy to sit on it and who's not. And the fact that not only is it cutting him, but that wound is getting infected.
He said it's growing bigger. I didn't know what that was with the pus. What was that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Minty said it could be a melanoma gone out of control. Or just like he's got a problem healing or something like that from just a regular cut. But
or I mean, the maester started poisoning him so early on, slowly.
We'll just put a little bit of grayscale on that wound. Oopsie. No, actually,
I looked at it as like an infection. Like it's a cut that got infected. Think of like Khal Drogo and his his cut is something. It starts out as like a little cut, but it gets infected and
magical though. You don't think Khal Drogo's wound was magically influenced by Mirror Master?
Oh man, we've got too much to get through. Please.
I'm just saying. Yes, I see the parallel, but
there's no answer. You can make a good case for either. So that's why I'm going like this, is because it's a good debate, and you could come down on either side of it. So, and then you can debate Miri's morality, whether she was justified or not, because that's debatable too. So, let's not.
So, but is Viserys the new King Scab? In episode 1, we've already seen 2 wounds.
Well, I mean, definitely it's consistent with the Iron Throne cutting people that aren't like worthy of it, but we'll have to see where it goes. It's like they're starting it earlier in Viserys' plotline, so I'm curious. I just wonder if it has an Old Town angle, because man, that healthcare really sucks. Either that or there's a damn conspiracy foot. Stacy Burke says Aegon II probably won't be told about the Song of Ice and Fire. Yeah, I don't want to again spoil the ending, but that's specifically the question: is does Aegon get told about it? Probably not. But the person who's king after him, maybe they did, or maybe it was written down somewhere and discovered later by someone. So there's a few possibilities here. Jordan the drummer: did Rhaegar share the prophecy with Lyanna? Then she shares it to Ned, who raised Jon and sends him to the wall. So the prophecy might have died with Ned. Again, one of the biggest mysteries is what did Rhaegar know, which we're closing in on that. He knew he was trying to fulfill prophecy. What did Lyanna and Arthur Dayne and Ashara Dayne know? Were they all in? I suspect all those people were in on Rhaegar's planning, myself.
Yeah.
And then, so what did Lyanna tell Ned? How long was Lyanna even alive when Ned found her? Was she like fading out of consciousness? And like, how much could she talk about? And then what is Ned keeps his damn secrets too. So yeah, hopefully we'll get some answers to this. Winds of Winter come out someday.
I mean, I like it because people keep saying Rhaegar was so melancholy. And after I saw that Hard Home episode, I was melancholy for a week because I kept thinking of like, when you see the army of the dead, there's no joy in life anymore. There's no more. So, like, I'm with you, David. Rhaegar saw some shit.
You know, and I just had a thought. Daemon the Drunkard, Egg's brother, we're meant to understand that he has turned to drinking because of his dreams. Aemon says, the dragon dreams, killed my brothers, every one. And he talked about Daemon having the dreams, and it killed him. And it's like, that's really what you see when you read the Hedge Knight. And so these, like I said, these dreams that go on when you close your eyes, they fuck with your head, man. They're bad. It's tough because, again, they're hard to interpret. And if you do interpret it, now you're supposed to do something about it. So, like, what we're seeing is that people react differently. So when they say Rhaegar was melancholy, well, yeah, he was. That was how he reacted to all this stuff. It's heavy, man. It's not like, yeah, I get to save the world. It's like, fuck, I have to save the world? I wouldn't want to be responsible for that. Good Lord. Tim, do you want to be responsible? Your kid's got to save the world. How do you feel?
No, I don't want that on my shoulders. But again,
I love the attention.
The true dragon, Nettles.
But you got to remember, this is coming from. But I'm saying, but this is also coming to the Targaryens, who already see themselves as sort of gods among men. And so, again, I always, when we think these prophecies, I'm always going to call it illusions of grandeur. These, for a normal person like me, I would not want to have that weight on my shoulders. But for certain Targaryens, and that's not to say that, it applies to every Targaryen, because... we just use the example of Daemon the Drunkard. He obviously didn't want that weight on his shoulders either, which is why he's drinking himself into a stupor so that he can have so that he can sleep without dreaming at all. But then others, they embrace it, and then they take it so hard, they take it too far because they believe that I am the hero of this story, or my son is the hero of the story. They do, and it's not just Rhaegar, because Egg. A lot of what takes us down the road of the Mad King is going to be Egg, because he's going to hear that prophecy from the ghost of Highheart, from that Woods Witch, then he, let's remember, Jaehaerys II and his sister marry for love, just the way that Jaehaerys and Good Queen Alysanne did. But Aerys II, the Mad King, him and his sister, they were not in love.
Forced.
They were forced together because that's what Egg decreed. And he decreed it.
No, Jaehaerys said that. Jaehaerys too said that. He was like, well, since I love my sister, you'll grow to love your sister. No, keep going.
But I'm just saying that it's this leading into prophecy so hard that you start forcing square pegs into round holes because you want to make it work for you, because you want to be the hero of your own story.
Right, because when you're being given the burden of prophetic duty, it's even worse than being made king. Your own personal desires really should get thrown out the window because you're dealing with stuff that's way more important. But you're still a person, and you still fall in love with people, and you still have mommy and daddy issues that you have to work out, and all that fucking shit. So
sibling rivalry.
Right? So and that's what George is doing with this. Is he is asking the question: how would people react to having dragons? How would people react to having prophetic knowledge? And a lot of different answers, because there's lots of different kinds of people. But you can tell it's something that George is thinking about and working out. And that is the main way that I usually try to describe George's version of fantasy. He takes all the fantasy tropes and he asks the question, what would people really fucking do with that? And that's how you get the Valyrian Empire. Because mankind is cruel. And there have been times many times, all throughout history, when people that have the most power and the most might, they just take what they want. For as long as they can, until they outstretch their own resources and collapse from internal corruption or whatever. But like, that's endless conquest is a thing that people try to do. And so it's like, if you had dragons, eventually you'd get that intersection of very ambitious, smart war people and dragons, and then everyone else is fucked. So this is why George's fantasy is realistic. It's because he's always asking that question, what would people do with these tropes? So just a great example of it on display here. All the different answers and the different reactions that people have to prophecy. Something in the chat that came up. There is a theory that Lyanna had a C-section. Lyanna. John's mom.
We don't have enough info for that, do we?
Well, no, it's just a theory, but she's in a bed of blood. So it's a very bloody childbirth that's happened. And the Kingsguard are there, and they won't let Ned in. Why do they have orders not to let Ned in to see his sister? It's a
Ned
theory.
has to fight and kill to get in there.
And there's also symbolism. It's moon things hatching out of the moon egg and stuff like that. Because it maybe was dawn that was used for the C-section. It would have been the sharpest instrument there. So that's
tough, man.
I don't like it because it's so tough. I'm just hoping that isn't true. So I don't ever talk about that theory. But now that we've seen this,
with Rhaegar being so convinced that he needs to have 3 children, him making the same call that Viserys did,
right? And Arthur Dayne would
hurt this kid at whatever cost.
Either he may have made that call, or Arthur Dayne and the Kingsguard could have made that call. Either one could have been the case, because we don't know when Rhaegar left and how long Lyanna was there when Ned found her. It's all in a dream haze. All the timing is murky intentionally. So,
but my thing is, the Sword of the Morning, or the Kingsguard, is there to protect the heir, not Lyanna.
And that's just what we saw in this scene. That was the whole point of the scene, is that it's a royal womb, as Emma says. It's not your womb anymore. It belongs to the crown. That's what that means.
Prophecy.
So that is an intense theory, yes. But I think it's probably worth considering now that we've seen what we've seen. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And also the whole Nissa Lightbringer thing. You know, Jon represents Lightbringer in a way. He's the thing that's forged from that event. Of course, Nissa was stabbed with the sword. So this would be a more direct parallel to that. Sorry for ruining your guys' night and making you even more upset after watching that. Yeah.
Why?
Okay.
Ron is the Song of Ice and Fire. What do you mean? He's Lightbringer.
Yeah, it just means that he's the promised prince and he's going to have a shining sword. He's going to save the day. That's what that means. It's all happy. All right. Back to the super chats here. These are all good questions too. So these are good way to get into the episode in different ways, different angles that we haven't taken yet. The skyline dominating Dragon Pit. I'm like, where was that in the days of the Baratheon kings? Well, it got collapsed. And of course, if you remember the final scenes where Bran's got the best story. That's why he should be king. And everyone's listening to me because I'm a prisoner and a dwarf. And that's just the sort of person that everyone listens to. That was in the ruins of the Dragon Pit. All that council where Dany landed with her dragon and they all met with Cersei. That was all in the Dragon Pit. It gets destroyed at a certain point in history. And so by the time of the Song of Ice and Fire story, it's collapsed. But I love the way it looks. It's big and beautiful, like an ancient football stadium. Every scene that the dragon pit is involved in, I'm just like this, like dragon keepers, dragon pubs.
Tell us your secrets.
Colin Ashley just became a patron. Appreciate the content. Praise Garth. Very good, Colin. I praise Garth regularly. Every time I'm off camera, that's probably happening. Keishov says, in Dunk's tourney, lords who fell can continue fighting. Yeah, but I think I'll have to go back and look. I thought they were either using blunted swords or they're just not trying to kill each other, because when somebody does get killed, it's like kind of a faux pas, but I'll have to go back and look and analyze that. I wasn't thinking about it too hard until now, so I don't know if I'm remembering clearly. So the Rhaenyra Cersei parallel is apparently the piano music, Curtis Frank says. I don't know if it's a theme or just the idea of sparse piano music there. It's probably a theme that's being echoed, if that's what you're saying, Curtis. That would be interesting. I loved the piano music in the last scenes when Rhaenyra was getting crowned and Daemon was leaving the city. Thought that was amazing music. Of course, obviously, it's Ramin. 28th wedding anniversary for Yensid. House of the Dragon is a great way to end the evening. Congratulations. It's many years together. It's awesome. Salvador Rodriguez. So Daemon listening is in a way to justify why he said the heir for the day comment. And so Allison, let me just stop with that. I think that the whole episode makes it understandable why he feels that way. Because he is the heir. So it's like, why is Viserys so hung up on trying to create a son to replace Daemon as the heir? It's like, what's wrong with me? So that's Daemon's whole angle. I don't think it's that cryptic. It's like he resents the fact that he's trying to be replaced. And so that's why there's a natural tension between him and any son of Viserys. And Allison definitely slept with the old king, right? I don't know. I wouldn't say that.
I say that this is a Nettles only theory.
He
David
was
doesn't
too
have the
damn old. Look how old he was. Come on.
He was not old for some sloppy toppy.
Of course,
that's a Nettles theory. That's a Nettles exclusive. I'm with you.
Was he doing those maester aerobics when the camera pans away? He's like Pycelle. All of a sudden, he's like, yeah.
Yes. He did like 50 squats.
Secret yoga. No. Mackenzie, if the dragons only understand High Valyrian, that would make sense for Viserys since he only rode Valyrian once. Right, he doesn't have a reason to keep up with the Valyrian. Okay, that makes kind of sense. Why learn it when he doesn't need it? Of course, at the same time, he's very obsessed with his Derek Zoolander school for Valyrians who can't dream good. He's working on that thing all the time. So, like, he's definitely connected to Valyrian stuff, but yeah, maybe he hasn't learned the language. We'll put a pin in that. The Acolyte says, death by 1,000 cuts, Viserys the First. And that brings me current. I'm current. I've caught up. Yes. Now we can talk about anything we want.
These dreams. Can I talk about my conspiracy theory or my
whatever? We didn't name hero and villain of the week, so give us your theory, and then we'll do hero and villain of the week, and then I think we're probably good. Okay.
So I'm always in the main text, book 1 through 5, trying to figure out what gods are real, between R'hllor and basically the old gods, or the northern gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll be right back. Keep talking. I'm listening.
So in that scene when before that scene where she's giving birth, she talks about having 5 miscarriages, which makes me think that there's like 2 opposing forces of gods. Maybe it's R'hllor and the cold ones or whatever that are fighting to change history. Now with Bran, I feel like anytime you're messing with time travel, you're messing with alternate histories, alternate kind of like dimensions, because depending on which fork you take in the road, right?
Okay, Preston Jacobs, go ahead.
Hey. So I feel like there's one force, I don't know which, wants the current timeline to continue where there's only one person born to Aemma, and it's Rhaenyra, so that the Dance of the Dragons can happen, and so that we can have our current timeline stemming from the loins of Aegon III. And then there's another god trying to force another timeline into place where Aemma has the heir. That's why there's 5 miscarriages. Somehow, Rhaenyra is able to be born with no fucking problem. Aemma just shoots her out. She sneezes, achoo! Rhaenyra's shot out.
I just think you're talking about the Maester conspiracy. You're not talking about any gods.
Well, that's the thing. So at first it's always gods, but then watching this, it did turn into maybe the third god might be the Maesters. So she has 5 miscarriages, which seems to me like whatever god is against the new timeline is killing these kids. Until finally this one, which is Balon, which I feel like Balon is one of those powerful names that never becomes king. When Balon is born, that's the one that's kind of hard to kill, so they have to kill Aemma. They have to kill Aemma to make sure, because if she lives...
This is all about the Maesters. This is all the Maesters. I'm sorry, but the they in your sentence is the Maesters. Like, they're the only people that are doing these killings. They're in charge of all of these births, all of this healthcare. So it's either just happening or it's the Maesters. The only thing I will accept is, like, George showing us, like, fate is, like, imposter claimants to the throne always die.
Yes.
That's kind of a thing. But that's not God doing that. That's Gurm. That's Gurm trying to be fate, I think. But you're breaking my brain too much. Can we not talk about the gods of Westeros?
Fine.
I need to table that.
But it was very evident to me with the writers choosing to write the lines for Aemma saying 5 miscarriages. Can this be the last one? And then we see this last one, which she kind of prophesizes. This is gonna be the last one. It just seems that it's like, damn. Even like if you guys study fertility or try to get pregnant, it's almost a miracle to get pregnant the first time, right? So just
miscarriages are, for the men in the chat, miscarriages are far more common than most men realize. Proceed, carry on.
Right. But before the miscarriages, just getting pregnant, just getting that sperm to that egg at the right moment in time is something miraculous. So it's like, that's what I feel like it's the gods or whatever, because it's like the sperm is getting to the egg. It's just that the egg is not growing to fruition. And that could be where the Maesters come in, because that's where the poison is. The egg is fine. The gestation is fine, but it's maybe some poison, whether Maesters or magic, that's making her miscarry. Because this current timeline, we only need one person coming from Aemma, and that's Rhaenyra.
Please don't talk about timelines. You're killing me. Please. I can't do it. I can't do it.
I'm done. That was it.
I think that George wants us to think about... I think that these theories, the alternate timeline theories, pop up because George is constantly thinking about the road not traveled. The way he makes his story interesting is he sets up an obvious future and then hits it sideways with a car. And then he's like, now what happens? So he's constantly making you feel like things should have happened this way or should have worked out that way. That's what I think. I think it's just good writing or whatever. But let me go.
No, I was done. I was going to say, Tim, you were making faces. Did you have something to say?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm going to put it out there. Like, I hate time travel as a plot device in a story because of how easily convoluted it can become. Here's the thing with time travel in a story. The author needs to establish rules of how they're going to use it, and they need to stick to those rules and carry it out throughout the story. I think George, with what he's doing, it seems like he's using like the idea of a closed loop timeline, which Bloodraven kind of goes by on, like, no, you can't influence the past. I tried. And maybe Bran will break that. I don't know. But I don't know. I hate time travel plots. They're so convoluted. They're so messy. They can break apart so easily. And while I love the idea that this show is going to give us more magic than Fire and Blood, I also don't want to go looking to insert magic in places where it's probably not needed. Like, Viserys's I don't. Viserys's I think Viserys's wounds getting infected are just medieval healthcare.
These are hashtag facts that Tim is dropping, Nettles.
Or it's anything like Emma's miscarriages. It's like, look, medieval birth was so hit or miss. Like, I don't see there's being like any sort of magic element to it, or or any kind of foul play. Like, miscarriages they happen. And like David said, they happen more often than you think. There doesn't need to be any more grand conspiracy. And even the Maester conspiracy, like, it doesn't even have to go to that realm. It's like, she just had a miscarriage. It happens. It sucks, and it happens.
Tim, you hit the very center of this conversation, so we can move on. I just want to harp on what you said. If you're doing time travel in a story, you have to embrace it. That means you have to make up rules, you have to be consistent, and you have to tell the reader the time travel is in the story, and here's how it works. Because otherwise, it's a complete free-for-all, and you see that with the time travel theories. It's like, oh, well, Bran drove Mad King Aerys crazy, and Bran was really Bran the Builder, and like, yeah, sure, anything could be possible. Like, I think what George is showing us is that any attempt at time travel is horrific, and it breaks everything. And that's what we're going to see with the Hodering, is even Bran just having psychic contact with somebody in another timeline and pressing that boundary is going to fuck a bunch of stuff up. Maybe in a way that creates something that needed to happen, but the point is, like, any sort of messing with time travel is going to immediately have horrendous consequences, and it's not going to be some sort of free-for-all thing. And if you want time travel, then you have to watch Dark. Like, Dark is a great example of how you do it.
I love Dark.
It's the best show I've watched in years, possibly ever. I think it's far superior to Game of Thrones if you talk about writing and acting. Oh, yeah, forget it. Like, Dark is on a level. I mean, Dark is, if you haven't watched Dark, you don't, I mean, I don't even know what to say. Watch it in German with the subtitles. It's the best TV show I've ever watched. I definitely think that. So, yeah.
I like it. I think it's the best TV show about time travel, like, realistically.
Well, that was the first thing I said about it, but every time I go back to it, I love it more. I think about it all the time. I haven't watched it in a while. I still think about it, man. But anyway,
I hate it when you're right, David, about the time travel in Game of Thrones.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Well, look, the point is that we want different perspectives here, you know, and so this is good. This push and pull is creating an interesting conversation, and of course, the whole point of writing a good story is to create things that aren't clear cut so that people can dance with them and make YouTube channels.
I love it. I love
it. We can't always be agreeing with each other on everything. Yeah. We don't want this to be one big circle jerk. Like there's going to be differing opinions.
I mean, I'm only right 99.9% of the time. So this is that point.
And we appreciate you leaving us that little, crack to get in there. Yes. So we appreciate that.
When we find that crack, we're going to go through it.
All right. So, from cracks to Caraxes to hero and villain of the week. That's not a segue. So let's go. And here's the point of this. Gray characters. The whole point about gray characters is that George says the same person can do something that we would say is heroic or villainous at different times. Jaime Lannister being the quintessential example. He saved all of King's Landing by murdering the king, which was simultaneously a disgraceful act and a heroic act. And the way he talks about it takes a lot of the luster off of it. So it's very mixed up. So the point of the segment is to say, on an episode-to-episode basis, who showed heroism and who showed villainy. So villain of the week is easy. It's obviously Sir Otto. Is there any debate? Is it the Maesters or is it Sir Otto?
Okay. Well, how about, do you want me to say my hero and villain of the week to start off?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to erase everything I read from the Rogue Prince and Princess and the Queen, right? And just going off of episode 1. The villain is Daemon. And the reason the villain is Daemon is because just how they're portraying him. I do think that they're starting off with like that Jaime archetype. They're going to make you hate him so that you could love him deeply. But villain of the week is Daemon because that everything you've seen that they've spoon-fed to us, we know the gold cloaks bring pretty much 0% crime to Flea Bottom, right? We know that they're effective, but the audience doesn't know that from season 1. We're seeing dicks chopped off, heads chopped off, hands chopped off. That's harsh. We're seeing him cheat at the joust. That was cheating. He went for the horse's legs. Okay.
It's definitely foul play. And thank you for the person who noticed my mic quality just got messed up. I have now fixed the problem. Thank you.
He's sitting on the throne the first time we ever see him. And I think in the books, the first time we see him is on his dragon or something. But the first time we see him in the show is on the fucking throne, the one place nobody cannot be. So for me, the villain of the week is my big daddy, Daemon. Okay, and then the hero is gonna be Emma. It's gonna be Emma. She's the hero. She's we first see her giving like words of wisdom to Rhaenyra, and then we see her screaming in agony, and then just like dying a hero's death. Like if the birth bed is the battle place of women, she died an honorable death because she died in battle.
That's exactly what I was talking about with processing these deaths. Is like that was like definitely a valiant death. So I agree with your Emma call. I disagree with the Daemon call. I strongly disagree with the Daemon call. In fact, I think that he is showing us what a Dragon King needs to be in order to hold on to that throne. It is no joke. You need to project toughness, and at the very least, Viserys needs to project unity with his dragon lords if he's not going to have a dragon. The idea that Viserys is a Dragon King with no dragon is ridiculous. That's the only reason why the Northmen ever knelt. We only ever knelt because Aegon had the dragons. King of the North.
As Blackfire, Viserys was showing off Blackfire in almost every scene.
That's because he doesn't have a dragon. It's a compensation thing. It's like having a giant truck because you don't have. Anyways, so point is, like, if Viserys is going to be a Dragon King without a dragon, he needs to have his dragon lords tight with him, and people should look at Daemon as an extension of him. So to allow Otto to create space in between him and Daemon is undercutting his rules. So everything that Daemon said, you're weak and I would protect you, is correct. And everything that Daemon's doing with the Watch while being overzealous, still better than what's going on. So I disagree that he's the villain. I think he's showing us what it takes.
This is my opinion. We can't disagree with my opinion.
Well, there it is. Tim, so my villain of the week is Otto. And with a shout out to the maesters, my hero of the week is Emma, with a shout out to Kristen Cole. Go ahead, Tim.
Wait, can you explain that?
Kristen Cole, what do you mean? He's a low-born nobody coming from nowhere, coming into King's Landing, whooping a whole bunch of ass, getting looks from the two princesses, and then beating Daemon Targaryen is smug ass. Like, come on, man. Kristen's awesome. What?
So you mean Kristen Cole is honorable mention after Emma?
After Emma, honorable mention.
I thought you meant like he had something to do with her being the hero.
Oh, no. Sorry. No, that was confusing.
I'm also...
No, it's the way I said that. Yeah. Honorable mention to Kristen as hero of the week. Well, he sucker punched Daemon, but Daemon counted his victory before it was actually done. So that's what you get. Mm-hmm. Tim, hero and villain, or thoughts on our picks?
Okay, so
and
if it hasn't been very apparent the way I've been talking, my villain of the week is Otto Hightower. Fuck Otto Hightower. Every problem of his is of his own making. Every problem of his is because Daemon took a breath and he resented that. And that's the thing. Like Otto Hightower, like they really laying into like so much of this is his fault. And then I reminded of that line when Viserys reminds him of like, well, you gave him the gold cloaks. You gave him the funds. You gave him the men. And then he goes like, only a half measure. And I'm a Breaking Bad fan, and my thought immediately went to Mike Ehrmanchau, like, no more half measures, Walter. It's like, no, half measure means that you want to take that your end goal is to take Daemon out. And that's the thing. Like that's
a good point. If that's right, what is the full measure then? You want to exile him basically, or kill him. Yeah. It's
just pure resentment on Otto Hightower's part. And
I loved it when Viserys turned on Otto. It was like, is that what you're saying? Are you saying he's going to kill me?
Yeah, like
yes.
Really, it's like despite Daemon and Viserys having their quibbles, like no, they're at the end of the day they love each other. I mean, they're gonna get angry at each other, and obviously it's gonna end. Things aren't gonna go well. There's gonna be like a disconnect for a while, but they're always gonna get back together. It's Otto Hightower constantly trying to drive that wedge between them. But no matter what he does, though, eventually Daemon and Viserys are going to get over the wedge and come back together, and that just pisses Otto Hightower off to no end. Hero.
Wait, what about?
Go ahead, Nettles.
What about Kristen being Dornish?
So I wasn't quite. The way that they said it, it was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, I didn't expect that.
Born
What's
like
that?
a bastard. They said he was base born like a bastard, but he has the last name. So I'm confused.
He's Stormland, so I think the implication he's supposed to be like the son, probably like the bastard son of a Marcher Lord and a Dornish woman. That's how I'm interpreting it.
Yeah.
But how does he have a last name then?
Well, the Lord can confer a name on him if they want to, but did they say baseborn?
He's a steward.
They said he's the baseborn son of a steward of Dondarrion. They whisper it in Rhaenyra's ear.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, anybody that has a name can ennoble their bastard, essentially.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that must have happened, I guess.
And if it's Dondarrion, and yeah, Dondarrion's our Marcher Lord, so that even further confirms it. He's probably the bastard son of the steward of House Dondarrion, so his father's probably a Stormlander, and his mother is probably a Dornish woman, and so he's like half Dornish. That's
right.
That's
so
my
it's slightly
head.
unexpected, right? It's not like Rhaenyra's like super racist or anything. It's just like, oh, he's Dornish.
Yeah.
And
but the Dornish aren't in the fold. Like I think the writers made it
Right.
a point that Rhaenyra's history book was talking about the Dornish because.
Yeah. So yes, baseborn means lowborn, not a bastard.
Okay,
That's
good.
what I thought too. So he's not a bastard. He's just lowborn. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
okay. I was going to say,
The reason I said it is because I think that Dorne might play a bigger role in this series than we thought.
I was just.
I mean, the Stepstones War, they're definitely there.
Okay, maybe that's the
true.
implication.
That's true. Yeah, maybe that's the angle.
Dorne lends help resources to the Triarchy in the fight against.
It seemed like Rhaenyra was like, "Why is he here? He's Dornish. Oh my god! Like, like he shouldn't be here."
But he's from the Stormlands. So.
And let me just apologize real quick. I'm a little out of practice with shaming the commoners, and so I don't know all of my words that they use, the baseborn, bastardborn, whatever. Like, so yeah, sorry. Hashtag Team Smallfolk. And then so Tim, who did you? So your villain was Otto. Did you name a hero?
No, I did not get to the hero
Okay.
yet. Just for clarification, just like this. Dornish marches are in the Stormlands, the Reach and stuff. It's kind of like how Kansas City is actually in Missouri. You got to look at it like that. Dornish marches are not actually Dorne.
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
But they said that he is Dornish.
Just to give us an example of how confusing these naming conventions can be. But anyway, hero. I'm giving it to Daemon. I'm giving it to my man Daemon. Now, maybe more of an anti-hero of the week. But I look at Daemon, especially when he delivers that line to Viserys, like, because you're weak, because I will protect you. I took it in the way of, like, what really scares the shit out of the small council is Daemon pulling what Stannis would have done had Robert made Stannis the hand, which is he would have killed all, like, Littlefinger would not be, not only, like, these guys, they wouldn't lose their cushy positions. They would straight up lose their heads.
And that's what I'm trying to say. That's the job description, to be a barbarian king of a giant kingdom that only obeys you because you can kill anyone with your dragon. That's the job description. You have to constantly be able to project that force, or else the rebellions, the treasons will spring up like weeds. We saw that with Aenys. And Viserys is very clearly not projecting that force, and Daemon is pointing at it. So I agree with you. I almost made Daemon the hero for that point, but that was my whole thing arguing against Nettles' point, calling him the villain, is because Daemon is essentially like, he is demonstrating what it takes for a Dragon Lord to hold on to that throne. And if it's really that important, then Viserys is not doing the right things to really hold on to that throne. And so, yeah, I do think, now Daemon's obviously flawed, but it's a very important point that he's demonstrating. Like, if Daemon didn't exist, why would the Targaryens still be in power at all? Ask yourself that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Viserys
guess
might have
the
been
way I
killed
would-
already. If Daemon didn't exist, Viserys might have been killed already.
That's right.
Just like Aenys. Aenys was
That's
about
right.
to be killed without
That's
Ningor.
right. So,
I guess the way I would want to put it is Daemon is the hero for being willing to make tough calls. Now, whether the call he makes is the right call, that's up for debate. But it's different from Viserys, who doesn't want to make a call at all, because Viserys wants to defer to other people and get their opinion. And sometimes, like, making those hard choices, even if they're not the right choices, that takes an edge that Viserys doesn't have, but Daemon does. And that's the heroic element. So it's a very different interpretation of what makes a person a hero.
well, thank you for defining that, Tim. That's very interesting. I appreciate it. It has more weight now. I appreciate that. That's a very thought-provoking way to think about it. Yeah, the hero is in, like, the protagonist of the story that's making the straw that stirs the drink is what I called it, which is originally it was Mickey Mantle that they said that about. I think it was. But in any case, what was I going to say? Fuck, distracted myself with these little asides.
You're saying that Tim had. Thank you, Tim, for putting it in that.
Yeah,
in those
right
words.
before that, I was going to harp on something he said.
Was it
Yeah,
comparing
but just
Daemon
I just really
to
feel
Stannis?
that Daemon is holding it together for the house, and that's not being appreciated. And yeah, I really do feel like Viserys would already. I mean, they potentially again just murdered his wife and son right in front of him. So you could see how powerless he potentially is. Okay, so
Viserys gave his blessing, though.
what's that?
Viserys gave his blessing. He chose the heir over his wife.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, for sure.
But
Let's
they
see.
they were. I would give them 90% of the blame because they're the ones that brought the fucking question to Viserys. I'll give it to Viserys 10% of the blame.
Oh, I was just gonna. I remember what I was gonna say. In some of the other previews, we've seen Rhaenyra in the small council making a suggestion, specifically to Viserys, where she says, "You have your family. You have dragons, father," and I'm guessing that they're talking about what to do about the Stepstones thing, because we know that what ends up happening is a bunch of the Valyrian dragons go down there. Daemon and apparently Laenor and Seasmoke and potentially Vhagar and Laena and Meleys and Rhaenys all go down to the Stepstones. So probably Viserys is like afraid to use his dragons, and Rhaenyra's not allowed to go, and all the other ones go. So already Rhaenyra is potentially, I'm guessing, going to start chafing against Viserys' lack of projection of dragon power, and it's an interesting thing for her to say.
You mean like now that she has the official title?
Right. Exactly. She's like, oh, well, if I'm, going to start having opinions about stuff.
Lords just bowed to her. That's the last. Is that the last thing? That's the last thing we saw. Is all these lords bowing to her.
Yep. We'll have to. The journey of Rhaenyra's character is going to be one of the main things that the show has to pull off. So we will see how that goes. So the segment, the change, yes, the idea of that was how are they dealing with the adaptation? We already picked up the main difference was the aging up of Rhaenyra. We talked about the prophecy. So I think we've about covered that angle. And then the Nan Watch I just created so that we're always make sure we talk about the olds on the show. Don't have to be the Nans, can be the grandpas too, but just old dragons and old people. I just figured they need a little. So it was kind of Rhaenys and Corlys, the closest thing we have to Nans here. I mean, Rhaenys is a grandma, so that's a Nan.
I have one. Who was that Kingsguard that we kept seeing? They never named him, but he was always with Viserys. He was old.
I think that's Ryan Redwine, although he should be, forget when he dies, but that was definitely him at the Great Council. So I think they're just making him like stick around a little longer, maybe. Am I right about that, guys?
I think so, because they're gonna play with the timeline a little bit, just for continuity's sake.
Somebody had a comment that the show was kind of dreamlike, with all the crossfading between scenes and some of the ways that Bledo. Like I agree with that. I like that too, and it enhances the idea that we're seeing this glimpse of history. So that's probably something they can do even more when they have to do the time skips if they need to go get a little dreamlike and stuff. But yeah, I dug that. I like that kind of filmmaking, so that was cool. Good comment there. Otto is the villain, no question. Thundacious D says, yep. I mean, the only rival to Otto really is the Maesters to me. And I told you they were more sinister, didn't I? I mean, I keep saying it, but they really, really weren't they?
I didn't even like those women that were attending to.
No, the whole thing was creepy. Yeah.
I didn't like those women.
They're like the nuns that'll lock you up for like weeks and weeks and beat you or something.
Shame.
Yeah, totally. So, all right. And then, so is there anything we didn't discuss? That's where we are now. Is there anything we missed? And now let's wrap it up. Last call for questions. Final closing thoughts. Very cool to be back with a good show to watch. That's my main takeaway. My main emotion coming out of the theater was this is going to be a great show. You know, right among the reasons why would be they're treating us like adults. The acting is strong. Cinematography is great. They're embracing the fantasy elements. They're building up characters quickly and efficiently. These are all the things I liked about it. So, what do you guys got?
For me, we covered everything in my notes, except the only thing is I have here is that Viserys is a crystals bitch. And what I meant by that is like Viserys is that friend that we all have who's like into crystals. And it's like, you know,
hey.
positive energy. I'm just going to see the good in Daemon, the good in Aemma, the good in Rhaenyra.
Okay,
like,
I feel you.
I'm just going to put all this good energy out. But it's like, but life is just a touch deeper than the crystals. Like, yeah, you have good intentions and it's not your fault, but it's like, you got to dig a little deeper. That's the only like thing that we didn't cover. And like, that's like kind of like my takeaway over who Viserys is he loves his crystals and his good karma and positive energy.
He's definitely trying to hold this thing together with tape, glue, and wishes. I'm not sure what your question is, Millennial Peter, about Kristen Cole and the Baratheon Lord. I think the Baratheons are kind of chumps in this story, and they're just showing you like he's kind of arrogant. The Rhaenys is half Baratheon, so there's a connection there. So that person asking for her favor was probably distantly related to her. And
she did refer to him as cousin.
Cousin, right. So then, yeah, so he's just a little overconfident. They're just setting up character traits that are going to come up later with certain Baratheons. So that's, I mean, it's just a haughty guy that got some comeuppance. And they got to show you Kristen Cole beating people that he's not expected to beat. So he's the Karate Kid working his way up through the ranks right there. You're the best around. No one's ever going to keep Kristen down. All right.
Hey.
There's a musical program here. Yeah. So, Tim, closing thoughts, general thoughts.
Love the show. Very excited with what they're doing. I can't, like I said, I love that they're not dumbing it down for us. Like I see, like it's accessible enough for a casual viewer, but it's not hand holding. Now, me as a book reader, I'm always gonna talk up the books, and if you're willing to take the plunge, I'm always gonna say like read the books. But I understand they're a huge investment, so I can never fault anyone for being a casual viewer. But I do love that they're gonna treat you like an adult. But you are, there's just going to have to be times where, like, you're going to have to pay attention because some names are going to sound similar and some names are going to be repeated. But that's how real history works. It's like, if you can't follow that, then I got some horrible news for you if you ever look at French history and how many Louis are running around at the same time.
Yeah, there's King Louis, there's Louis Vuitton, there's, but the thing is, like, all these characters are very strong and distinct. Like, you wouldn't confuse Rhaenys and Rhaenyra.
Mm-hmm.
No.
They're not similar at all. They're very different in age and appearance and allegiance and all that. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of strong characters that are defining themselves. People were wondering why we haven't seen some of the next generation people as much. And, like, this is why. They don't want to confuse people. Like, we got to get to know these people first. We'll worry about all those other folks later. So
we haven't even seen Olivia Cook and
we won't.
Yeah.
For several. And once we see them, that means Millie and Emily
Darcy?
No, who's young Allison?
Oh, I don't know.
Emily Carey.
That'd be the worst for the actor
Emily
names.
Carey. I should know her name. I went to bat for her on Twitter when she stuck up for Allison, and people were like, "Did you even read the book?" I was like, "Shut the fuck up! You didn't read the book."
She's like, "I've met George R. R. Martin. Have you, bitch?"
People are so rude. In any case, but not our crowd. Our crowd is wonderful, very polite. They send super chats and ask great questions and hang out and are polite, and it's very friendly scene here. It's been a great debut of the Flying Dragons post-game show. What do you guys think of my new channel artwork that I put up today, huh?
Love.
Okay. Minty liked it, so,
I have a question for you two gentlemen.
Yeah.
What are, just one thing, you can only name one. What are your predictions for episode 2? For what we'll see.
A lot of Valyrian. Because we got short shift on Valyrian. Also more Mysaria, but people asking me what I thought about Mysaria. I'm reserving judgment. I liked it kind of, I think, but I don't know. It was so quick. Like, I need to see more. It's definitely tantalizing, so I'm interested. But she was just not in many scenes. So she obviously has a connection with Daemon, and she's probably the only one that he will just collapse and put his head on her shoulder and be like, "Oh, thank you." Like, so that's cool, but mostly next week, it's going to be a lot of Valyrians. We're going to get probably set up the Stepstones thing, or maybe even do it. I don't know, depending on how fast the show moves. But Valyrian big time next week. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
Tim?
Like, I know again, I've been trying to avoid all of the leaks. Like, I know that, like, I guess the episode names, or at least the placeholder names, were leaked.
What?
But I don't even know what they are, so I could be dead wrong. But I think, like, this episode was very contained because it was all in King's Landing. So I think episode 2 is when we're going to start branching out more. Maybe we'll see, like Dave said with the Valyrians, maybe we'll see some Driftmark. Maybe we'll see Dragonstone. I'm sure we're going to have to catch up with what Daemon and Mysaria are doing and where they're headed. So I think that's when we're going to start seeing, episode 2 is when we're going to start seeing, start introducing the other locations, because obviously we're not always going to stay in King's Landing.
Good point. Yeah, we'll see Daemon and Mysaria on Driftmark, maybe War Council with Corlys, or on Dragonstone, and then maybe War Council with Corlys on Driftmark or something. Yeah.
Do you want to hear my prediction?
Yeah. No, Nettles. No, we don't. Yeah, go ahead.
Criston Cole. More of him. Him and Rhaenyra falling for each other, or just like what it's like to live in the Dornish marches. Hopefully, if that's what I'm looking forward to. And
either 2 or 3, they've got to start that. Yeah, if that's going to be a thing, I agree with that. Let's see. Okay, so then what was I going to say? Oh yes, I wanted to ask everyone, in all seriousness, like a serious question, both you guys and the chat. Is the Flying D's thing corny, and should we change it to Flying Dragons? Because I could keep all the graphics and stuff the same and just say House of Flying Dragons instead of House of Flying D's. Now, I think Hot D is distasteful because, as Tony Teflon pointed out today, nobody wants a Hot D. That's not cool. So you might need to see a doctor about that, was the conclusion, like... But no, seriously though, the Flying D's thing, like, should we change it to House of Flying Dragons officially, or should I just leave it House of Flying D's and that's cool? And that our content is mature, even though, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the long term, Flying Dragons. But I've got the mind of an 8th grader, so I did like the Flying D's, but yeah, long term probably Dragons.
The chat says keep it.
Keep it. Woohoo!
Yeah.
I'm a fan of sophisticated dick jokes, okay? I want to stay Flying D's.
I think it's sophisticated because it's referencing House of Flying Daggers and the dragons fly, and we saw a dick get chopped off and thrown in the air today. So there was literally a Flying D of probably like 3 different varieties today. So I think we're going to stick with it.
But look, just because it's low-hanging fruit doesn't mean it can't be juicy and ripe, all right?
Oh, Minty says no one wants a cold D. Maybe that's true. I guess when you want the Goldilocks zone, I don't know. Maybe this is too much discussion.
Nobody
but
wants a his star.
I definitely don't want to pull
the hot
it.
D over the cold D. I'm with you, Minty. Hot D over cold D.
I just think that a wet pussy is that's just gross, and my wife has dry. Go Ben Shapiro.
Yes, Ben. Yes, Ben.
Exactly. You don't want to go Ben Shapiro out here. So, yeah. If you don't know what that is, by the way, I think everyone saw that.
You're blessed. If you don't know what that is, you're blessed. Because I hate that I know what that is. I hate that.
Nah, everybody. The WAP was everybody. Probably my dad knows about that. I mean, that got around. What was his main line? There was that remix, right? The techno remix it was a remix of the Cardi B song with Ben Shapiro cut in.
Oh yeah,
it was dope. It was dope, man.
He was reading the lyrics in the most robot way possible. Yeah,
that's what it was. He was reading the Cardi B lyrics. Yeah. All right, this is a good place to stop. Thank you guys. This has been great. I'm gonna get a good night's sleep, and then tomorrow I will download the episode and get started on making some videos, and we'll see you back next Sunday with more stuff to talk about. Hopefully less childbirth death, but there'll be something else awful that I'll have to counsel you for. So you can always expect to get a good mix of dick jokes, intelligent analysis, and grief counseling here at House of Flying D's. That's what we offer. Council is out of session. Thank you all for coming. You've been beautiful. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Nettles.
Could we plug our own channels real quick?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. You're already in the description. But yes, by all means, tell the people.
Coattails and ride them. But I plan on going live this Saturday on the Grey Waste Tim channel. I'm be covering Shadow over Innsmouth. So go watch Dave's video on the lizard people, and then come join me for we're gonna invoke the spirit of that most esteemed marine biologist, the nimble Dr. Richard Crabb, and we're gonna look at the fish people.
Nice. Okay, well, I might have to come out for that one, man. Usually your Saturday night streams are hard for me because I'm getting ready for my Sunday morning stream, but I'm not doing Sunday morning streams anymore, so I'll have to come by. But yes, check out Lizard People, and then just go over to Tim's channel and start wandering around in the dark corners, because he's kind of like the Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard, etc., that era of literature, which is a big influence on George. So Tim is our expert / enthusiast, if that puts less pressure on you, Tim.
I'm gonna be doing this stream in conjunction with Skull Pit Mutants. They're doing a flash. I've plugged their stuff before. They did these resin Wendigo figures. They're part of my artist friend Nick Eck, who does a lot of my stuff for me. He's working with them, and they're doing a last bus out of Innsmouth flash sale for some resin squisher figures that they're making, and those are I'll have all the details of that in the upcoming days.
I was about to say, we got a whole chat full of YouTube channel member squishers. Might want to get their hands on one of them things. All right. And then Girl Nettles, so guys, both of my co-hosts are very clever. They have named their channels after the same names that they use on this stream. So how do you find Grey Waste Tim? You type in Grey Waste Tim to the YouTube box. How do you find Girl Nettles? You type in Girl Nettles to the YouTube box.
I just want to shout out the chat, because I am you and you are me. Like, I started off as a bot, or not a bot, as a person on, when you were LML, LML's channel.
I'm still LML, but yeah.
I never thought that my face would be on here. So shout out to the chat. You keep me young. I love you.
Well,
And
you brought a lot to the table, Nettles. Oh, sorry. Go ahead and finish. I was trying to compliment you. Go ahead.
That was it. Y'all can't even handle my channel, because I've only had 2 people in the history of the world do my drink and know things challenge. So don't even bother going to my channel. But
unless you can handle it.
Fuck yeah, chat. I love you guys.
Right on. Well, that's cool. You're bringing a lot. I was just going to say, you're bringing a lot to the program here. So I'm very honored to have you on the show. And it's been great. So, that's, if you guys like drinking games, before the show, there was a lot of drinking game chatter. What's the drinking game? I was saying it's when you see a dragon or when they say the name of a dragon. But if you like drinking games, then check. Well, it depends. Some of these episodes would kill you. Then check out Girl Nettles' channel, and she has it's you have to name all the Targaryen kings, isn't that it?
Yes, while you're drunk.
While you're drunk. So yes, that was that's on her channel. So there you go, guys. Thanks a lot. And of course, there's also a link to benefit Nick X chosen cancer charity. So you can check that out. That link is also in the description of the video. So that is our good cause of the week. Yes, and that glass is empty. Oh my goodness. Why should we end the stream if you're just getting saucy?
Thank you to everyone who sent a super chat in. Thank you for supporting the cause. Thank you for supporting, especially, and a shout out to Nick, one of my best friends. Wouldn't have the channel, or he's half of what my channel is because of what he's contributed for me. And I always want to credit him, and I also want to and every artist. Like we always want to credit artists that we use everything. Like they don't get the credit that they deserve, and people need to quit cropping their names out of pictures.
Oh, it's the worst. Yeah, you know I'd take a strong stance with that on my channel, so.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's true, yeah.
All right, right on. Well, lots of love for you guys in the chat, so thanks for coming on, and I will see you two again next week, and see all of you beautiful people, like I said, during the week with some videos. I've got no idea, so just be subscribed to the channel, and I'll have stuff popping up all week, so.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Good night.